Hey guys, no, you're not experiencing deja vu. The previous upload of the compilation video was demonetized due to language, which unfortunately caused its views to fall off a cliff. So I've had to re-edit and re-upload the video with most of the language censored. Fingers crossed that there's no issues this time. The original 3 videos are still uncensored on the channel, and I'll link them all down below in the description.
Life is complicated. I killed people, smuggled people, sold people. Perhaps here, things will be different.
GTA IV, the 3rd highest rated game of all time. Good to see you're still in 2nd place, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. There's probably no other game where my opinion of it has flip-flopped as much as Grand Theft Auto 4. After the incredible San Andreas, the expectations for this game were huge, especially with the longer wait compared to the 2-year gap between Vice City and San Andreas. The first GTA game on the 7th generation of consoles, it was set to revolutionize the series, and then it finally came out to almost overwhelming critical praise, which naturally drove my own personal hype for it through the roof. Once I finally got my hands on it and started playing, I was blown away with the game. At first, the graphics were amazing, especially the character models in comparison to the blockier look of San Andreas.
Oh my god! What's wrong with your face?
Liberty City looked absolutely amazing in HD, the city looking even more like New York City than it did before, which as a New Yorker myself, I really appreciated. But despite great impressions and fun towards the beginning, at the end of the game, I felt really mixed. I felt like something was really off about the game. This is the highest rated game ever, I thought to myself. It was getting 10s everywhere. People couldn't stop singing its praises. So why didn't it feel like the masterpiece everyone was calling it? At first, I wondered if it was me. I was in my last year of high school, planning to go to college, and my tastes in gaming had changed quite a lot. Shooting games weren't really my thing anymore, and I leaned more into JRPGs. Maybe I'd just outgrown the genre. I wasn't sure at first, and I remember replaying the older GTA games just to see how I felt about them. And yeah, I still like them. A lot. There was just this fundamental difference between GTA IV and what came before it. The fun, more over-the-top story and missions were gone, and in its place was a more grounded and serious story, with much simpler and repetitive feeling missions. And as time went on, my feelings didn't really change. But everyone else started to agree with me. They shared the same issues and felt that the so-called masterpiece was completely overhyped. The DLC stories, the Lost in the Dam and Ballad of Gay Tony, would fix some of the problems with the original release of the game, but it didn't really salvage the whole experience for me. For the longest time, that's just how I felt about GTA IV. An okay, but otherwise overrated game. But then something happened. Something that would completely flip my opinion on this game. Yeah, GTA V was released, and all of the marketing went out of its way to show it was going back to the good old days of GTA. We're back in San Andreas, we got wacky missions and characters, you now have 3 playable characters. This was going to be the best Grand Theft Auto ever. And then I ended up hating it. GTA V felt shallow, like it tried so hard to avoid being like GTA IV that it ended up ignoring its better aspects, coming up short when trying to copy what the original trilogy did right. While it had this massive, huge world, I never felt motivated to engage with it or explore it at all. Once again, I wondered if it was me. Maybe Grand Theft Auto wasn't for me anymore. So like I had done years earlier, I went back and played the older titles. And while the original trilogy was still a blast to play, to my surprise, I suddenly ended up appreciating GTA IV a lot more.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
The things I hated about it originally, its gritty realism and seriousness, I ended up enjoying a lot more. I paid attention to the story, I sympathized with the characters, the game kept me engaged. I took more time to explore Liberty City and discovered tons of new things I never knew about. The game that left me underwhelmed was suddenly fresh and amazing. But was it always like that? Or did I feel better because I wasn't crazy about GTA V? Well, join me in finding out as I revisit a game that is paradoxically overrated, but also underappreciated. To keep the video from being too long, I'm only going to focus on the original GTA IV release, and won't be going over the episodes from Liberty City. But if you're interested in my opinions on those, comment down below and let me know. I may make a follow-up video to this one somewhere down the line. So let's get into it. The game kicks off with our protagonist, Niko Bellic, on a ship due for Liberty City. Well, actually, it starts with some random guy getting whipped by a dominatrix.
Dirty fucking bitches!
Dave, come on.
Come on!
Feels a little random, especially since that guy never shows up again, but I guess the game wants you to have a laugh as you're starting. During the opening, Niko shares some words with his friend and fellow immigrant, Hassan, explaining a bit about why he's come to Liberty City. It's mostly kept vague and not fully explained until later, but we find out Niko had previously fought in a war in Eastern Europe, and after being unable to find work when the war was over, he fell into a criminal life and got mixed in with some very bad people. So he's decided to try and start a new life for himself in America, while also trying to get away from the people who are after him. But once he's fresh off the boat, any ideas of a glamorous life in Liberty City are shattered pretty fast when he's picked up by his cousin, Roman.
Niko, my cousin! I can't believe it, you're here! Welcome to America!
Bravo, Barazzaru.
What?
Good to see you, man. What, you forget our language?
Kabusi?
Roman has emailed Niko all about his amazing life in America. A prospering business, tons of beautiful women, fast cars, and an amazing mansion. Which of course is all bullshit. I'll give Niko credit though, as the opening makes it clear he didn't fully buy what Roman was selling. Still, he wasn't expecting just how lousy his cousin's living situation actually was. A tiny and failing cab business, thousands of dollars of debt, and living in a tiny crappy apartment. Though considering the cheap apartments you can get in New York City nowadays, Roman's might as well be a mansion in comparison. The two cousins catch up, with Niko spilling more about his time back home. From his tone, his actions and the things he saw during the war still weigh heavy on him. Best summed up by this line.
War is where the young and stupid are tricked by the old and bitter into killing each other.
But for the time being, we're still in the dark about why he's really here in Liberty City. After Roman goes back to work, you're given full control of Niko. Heading over to the taxi depot, you'll be introduced to two new characters. Mallory, who's Roman's girlfriend and works as his secretary or taxi dispatcher, I think. It's hard to say, as while you do see her at his depot, and she's supposed to be working for him, you never see Mallory actually doing any work throughout most of the game. Along with her is Vlad, who I mistook for Roman's boss, but is in fact a loan shark he owes a lot of money to. Vlad hangs around the cab depot to harass Roman for his money, and is constantly hitting on his girlfriend Mallory. Naturally, he and Niko don't take a liking to each other.
No, and Roman, tell this yokel here if he doesn't stop staring at me, I'll have his head chopped off and put a film of it on the internet!
Can't wait to inevitably kill that asshole. GTA IV starts off rather slow, with Niko helping Roman with his taxi business. The first hour or so's worth of missions more or less just being an extended tutorial for some of the new things in this game. The first mission has you taking Roman to the hardware store and then outrunning some loan sharks. Some different loan sharks. And receiving his old cell phone at the end. Afterwards, Niko needs to pick up Mallory and her friend Michelle, taking the latter on a date afterwards. But only if I buy some new pants. What the f***, Michelle? I'm new to this country. Don't poor shame me. There's not much to say about Michelle. She weirdly takes an immediate interest in Nico, and the bowling date with her is fine, but she comes off a bit milquetoast in terms of her character. I'm sure she'll just be a disposable girlfriend with no plot relevance.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
The date is just a tutorial for the friendship system, as throughout the game, various characters will hit Nico up to hang out for drinks, to eat, play pool, or do whatever. You know the whole meme with this game.
Nico, it's Roman. Let's go bowling.
Though, to be honest, I don't know if it was something that was patched, but friends hitting me up to hang out didn't really feel all as obnoxious as I remembered. Your friends aren't constantly calling you, and yeah, sometimes they'll call during a mission, but Nico will usually have a scripted response for them to avoid being forced to hang out.
Nico, it's your cousin. You want to shoot some pool?
Shit, Roman, I can't talk now. Damn.
And having to manage their friendship level feels annoying at first, but once it's high enough, you can just cancel plans immediately after making them. Which, I'll admit, I had no idea you could do that when I first played the game. And you do get some unlockables once you get their friendship high enough. With Roman, for example, sending you a free taxi cab if you give him a call. Continuing our adventures in Liberty City, we save Roman from getting stomped out, play taxi driver some more, and make a new friend in Lil Jacob.
Realness, brother. You're my man Roman's cousin. Thanks, respect. This rascal that I rockers with my brethren real bad man the other day. I want to make peace, but John know what type of shit they might pull off.
Man, it's dang old complicated, you know, man. It's like a dang old Rubik's Cube, man. You like talking about it, blue, red, man, then you get to one side, and then you like messed up the other side.
He smokes the weeds, deals the drugs, and honestly, I ended up liking him a lot more than I was expecting, even if I could never understand what he was saying. His first mission acts as a tutorial for the shooting in the game, and it's okay. The lock-on works relatively well, and you can switch between targets easily enough. I just hate the manual aiming in this game, as you have to half press the trigger as opposed to fully pressing it, which is awkward as all hell. Though if this game supported the PS5's haptic controller, it'd probably feel a lot more natural. Along with the shooting, there's also new cover mechanics, allowing Nico to snap to an object or a wall to protect himself and fire back at enemies. Like the shooting, it's a bit awkward too, as I found myself covering behind the wrong object's surface constantly, and always had a hard time switching between and leaving cover. The whole system is made even more annoying as enemies will also use and fire behind cover, and almost never leave cover, making certain firefights drag a lot more. After wrapping up helping Roman, Nico has the option to work for him as a taxi driver to make some extra money, which I don't think I ever ended up doing during this run. Vlad will call soon after and threaten bodily harm on Roman if Nico doesn't start doing favors for him. Guess we have no choice but to listen to this asshole for now. Working for Vlad feels more like your traditional GTA work, as he'll send you out to extort people who owe him money, either shaking them down or just straight up stealing their cars, with his final mission asking you to kill someone for him, and introducing the player choice system. Throughout the game, you'll be given the option to kill or spare certain people, or choose to kill one person over the other. And it really isn't as game-changing as I originally thought it would be. For one, these choices are spread out so far between each other you might actually forget it's a mechanic in the game. 2, there isn't really an immediate reward for sparing or killing someone outside of the mission bonus. For example, if I spare Ivan instead of killing him for Vlad, he thanks us and disappears completely from the plot. Which happens if you kill him too, for obvious reasons. Or so I thought. As it turns out, Ivan does end up showing up later in the game as a random encounter, having turned his life around and giving Nico an optional mission. Since I just brought it up, might as well explain what random encounters are. You won't see them on the bigger map, but if you happen to be around certain areas at the right time, you can do little side missions, like catching up with Nico's friend Hassan after they've both left the boat, helping a girl get clean of her drug habit and leave Liberty City for good, drive around and later almost get killed by a serial killer. I like these a lot because it rewards the player for interacting with the city, and doesn't just stamp it on your map as something you should go do, like an Ubisoft game. While the actual missions aren't anything special compared to what you're doing normally, I enjoy the little stories and characters attached to them. After sparing Ivan, we catch up to Roman, who looks down in the dumps. Turns out Mallory has been cheating on him with Vlad, which you'd think would be just desserts considering Roman constantly cheats on her, but he actually liked her. Though I should point out that Mallory only slept with Vlad because he promised to excuse Roman's debts, so she didn't do it maliciously. Roman doesn't find this out till later, though. His feelings 180, though, when he finds out Nico might have known.
Yeah.
You knew?
I had suspicions.
You knew?
What was I going to say?
You knew my woman was banging this warthog and you didn't do anything?
I didn't
say anything?
I didn't know.
You're an asshole, Nico Bellic! A disloyal user! After what I did for you, you dick! You dick!
I'm sorry.
Screw you!
All right, so you want me to deal with it right now?
No. Sit down.
No! I'm not going to stand here and have you call me disloyal. You might let some Russian asswipe bang your woman, but I won't.
But you did!
That was before I knew you cared.
Well, we're not gonna let our cousin be a cuck, so it's time to put that piece of shit Vlad down once and for all. We confront him at his bar where we've been meeting him for his missions, and he takes off, leaving us to deal with his goons. The cousins Bellic soon give chase, and I've been trying to avoid talking about it for as long as I could, but I'm forced to bring it up now. I hate the driving in this game. Yeah, I know, real hot take. Future Fuzzy here. In my original version of this video, I originally dismissed the driving mechanics as being bad and did a piss poor job explaining why. And since that was probably the biggest criticism I got about the video, I figured now was a good time to rectify that mistake and explain myself better. Now, the previous GTA games had a more arcade-like feel to its driving. Most cars accelerate pretty fast, with only top-heavy cars in danger of tipping over or spinning out when making a turn. Turning in general was a lot more generous, as you didn't need to slam on the handbrake if you were speeding to make a quick turn, usually just letting go of the acceleration button being enough to make the turn. GTA IV tries a more realistic approach. The new driving mechanics and physics engine giving more weight to the cars you drive. Cars do indeed feel and handle differently from each other, so a regular sedan isn't going to accelerate as fast as a sports car, but making turns requires you to be more precise, as your car tends to make turns a lot wider, and deaccelerating doesn't make those turns easier like the old games, and instead you have to manage your speed and make use of the handbrake. So if you try to drive the car like you did in the PS2 trilogy, you'll end up with the wobbliness and boat-like handling I complained about. Now I'll admit labeling the controls as flat out bad wasn't a good take. There's just a bigger learning curve to driving in this game. It's certainly manageable, and I did learn the driving eventually, but Christ, is it jarring switching between this game and back to San Andreas. The older games just come off more natural, so you're always going to be thrown off for a bit returning to this game. You can argue in the comments about which controls are better, but if these realistic controls are as great as some claim, you'd think Rockstar would have kept and refined them in GTA V, instead of returning to something that felt like the old games. Hope I did a better job this time explaining my point. I'm not a fan of the driving, but it isn't this giant blemish on the game like I initially made it sound. It just tried something different, and not every player would be immediately receptive to it. Eventually, we catch up to Vlad, and he tells us if we kill him, his powerful friends will be after us. Yeah, whatever, dude. Eat shit.
You were the stupid one, Vladdy boy. Nobody. With my family.
With that, our cousin's honor has been restored. Roman isn't very grateful, though, as he's terrified that Vlad's supposed powerful friends will now be after the two of them. Nico tries reassuring him, and also takes the time to open up about his time in the army. His squad of friends were killed during an ambush, as someone in their group had betrayed the others for money. There were only 3 survivors of the ambush, and since Nico knows he didn't betray the group, he's spent the last 10 years of his life searching for the other 2 survivors, one of whom he's tracked to Liberty City, though he's not sure which one it is. This calms Roman down a little bit, as the two take in the situation and toss Vlad's body into the river. All loose ends wrapped up. Looks like it's happily ever after. Oh hey Roman, what are you doing hiding in this dumpster?
Oh!
Get out of the dumpster, Mr. Fatman! Come on, fatty. The boss wants a little chat.
Wake up!
Well, well, if it isn't the consequences of my actions. As it turns out, Vlad wasn't bluffing. His boss is less than happy that we killed him. We're now introduced to Dmitry Raskolov and his partner, Mikhail Faustin. They make quite the pair, with Dmitry the calm and level-headed one, and Mikhail the angrier and impulsive one. Their antics would make a watchable sitcom.
So, Niko Bellic, you think it's okay to kill my employees?
If he is an asshole, yes.
If you thought Vlad was bad, Faustin is on a whole nother level. He's a bit unhinged to say the least, as he's quick to kill one of his own goons just for looking at him funny. And unfortunately for Niko, despite the fact Faustin didn't even like Vlad, he doesn't appreciate the disrespect in killing one of his guys, and forces Niko into his servitude. He also shoots Roman in the stomach to show he means business.
Shut up, Roman. Roman, shut up. Shut up, Roman. Roman, shut up.
Mikhail! Shut up! Stop shooting people, you maniac! My wife doesn't like when people shout! Whatever!
But also to shut him up. With no room to argue, Niko does as he's told. His first task for his new psycho boss is to steal a bunch of TVs another group is trying to sell on his turf, which involves first stealing a police car, and then using it to pull them over and rob them. His missions will mainly involve taking people out from a rival Russian mafia family. But we also have to deal with his personal life, as he'll ask us to kill a biker who's trying to woo his daughter. Said biker being a member of the Lost MC, the gang being the central focus of the first DLC story for the game. The escalating gang war causes Faustin to become more and more unhinged, his relationship with Dmitry deteriorating throughout. From what we learn about the two, they're close friends and blood brothers who immigrated to Liberty City together. But it seems years of abusing drugs and alcohol have eroded Faustin's mind, turning him into the charming psychopath he is today. It's not all doom and gloom during this section though, as we do get to meet the oh-so-awesome Brucey.
Brucey! Have you met my cousin, Niko? This is Brucey. We met online.
Oh, lovemeat.net?
No! In a dark corner, doing dark deeds. We're both players, my friend. Players. VIP. For real. Classy. But also sexy. That's how I like my women. I work at it, so they should too, right?
Yeah,
What is he talking about?
Brucey's a dreamer. He understands my vision.
Oh, so he's an idiot.
Hey!
Screw you. Listen, man, you should try going online.
He's a lifestyle coach, car entrepreneur, and all-around roidhead. Despite his over-the-top nature, he's weirdly one of the more realistic characters in the game. Like if you go to the gym, you've absolutely met someone like Brucey. That guy who working out is his life, is constantly bragging about his crazy lifestyle, and is convinced those Asian tattoos he got when he was drunk mean health and happiness. Unfortunately, our first meeting with him is a little dull, as the mission is really just there to teach Niko how to use his email and the internet. Man, I kind of forgot that phones couldn't always get email. How fast technology has evolved in the last decade. For something I didn't really pay all that much attention to, and I'm assuming other players did the same, I'm impressed with the work Rockstar put into using the internet in GTA IV. Outside of getting missions from Brucey, Niko will receive emails from his mom, can read blogs, try online dating, read the news, which usually includes updates on the shenanigans Niko gets wrapped up in. And hell, you can even buy ringtones or wallpapers for his phone.
Dmitry.
Hey. Sit down.
What's the problem?
What do you think?
Mikhail, Mr. Faustin.
Uh-huh. You're given a choice. Kill your best friend or die. What do you do?
And there is no way out?
Not now. Not after you killed Petrovic's son.
Well, looks like shit's hit the fan. Faustin's antics have pissed off the wrong people, and Dimitri and Nico have no choice but to kill him or die alongside him. Dimitri doesn't sound happy about this choice, but as he warned Faustin over and over again, they have to play by the rules. Dimitri leaves you some body armor for the mission, and you're absolutely going to need it. Nico confronts Faustin in his club, and rather interestingly, he's already expecting him, like he saw this betrayal coming, though he's quick to warn Nico that Dimitri will betray him too. Faustin won't go down without a fight though, as he sicks all of his goons on Nico. And Jesus, this place is a nightmare to get through. As soon as he takes off, Nico is completely exposed, and has to shoot his way through Faustin's goons to give chase. But the wide open area of the club doesn't give you much cover, so you'll have to kill his goons fast. Even after the first batch is done though, you'll still have more to deal with in a narrow hallway. And forget running away from them either, as they'll shred you to pieces before you make it to Faustin. When you corner him on the roof, he drops his gun, more or less accepting his fate, but still calling Nico and Dimitri out for their betrayal. I forgot to bring it up earlier when I killed Vlad, but during certain missions, you can pull out a pistol to trigger a special execution, as opposed to just gunning them down outright. It's cool, I guess, but it just amounts to playing an extra cutscene.
You have got me cornered! There's nowhere for me to go!
You betrayed yourself, Mr. Faustin.
Man, that scene loses a bit of impact with the way Faustin ragdolls off the building. Well, that was a bit intense. I think I'll cool off with some TV for a bit. A short time later, Dimitri calls up to arrange for Nico's payment, asking him to come out to a warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and to come alone. Well, nothing suspicious about that. Though Lil Jacob isn't convinced, calling Nico up and offering to act as backup just in case something goes down. You're a real one, Jacob.
Hey, Nico. Glad you could make it.
Yes. You got the money?
Sure. But I just wanted to say how grateful me and my bosses are for what you did.
Good.
Yes. And I just wanted to check something with you.
Okay.
You are Nico Bellic, correct?
What is this?
And you used to work the coast in the Mediterranean, smuggling people into Italy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But you messed up. And left a lot of bad debt. You left a good friend of mine out of pocket. Big time.
Hello, Nico.
Hello, Mr. Bulgarin.
Yes. Where is our money?
I don't know. I didn't rob you.
Really?
We were busted a mile off the coast. I had to swim for my life. I don't know what happened. I nearly drowned.
Huh. My heart is bleeding.
I did my best. I didn't f*** up.
God damn it, Dimitri, you piece of shit. Now, Dimitri's betrayal isn't really surprising. I think my problem with it is how damn fast it comes after killing Faustin. Before this point, we're led to believe that Dimitri and Faustin are working on their own operation. The hit on Faustin being a necessary evil to keep peace between their group and Petrovic's group. Yet Dimitri is now working with Bulgarin out of nowhere, immediately selling Nico out to his old employer. Yeah, it's there to paint Dimitri as a snake, but he's been rather calm and respectful to Nico throughout the missions he was doing for them. Part of me thinks that maybe Dimitri's mind broke somewhat after betraying his best friend, and in his head this is his twisted way of avenging Faustin, but there's not much that really supports this. and his characterization as the story goes on really just makes him into more of a mustache-twirling villain than a deeply conflicted character. So really, I'm completely overreading a character that isn't meant to be all that deep. After shooting our way out of the warehouse with Lil Jacob, Nico meets up with Roman to catch him up on the situation. Roman suggests they get out of town and lay low for a bit, getting some help from Mallory and finding a place to stay. The cousins swim back to their place, but unfortunately Dimitri's men have already been there, having burnt down their apartment and Roman's cab depot too. With nothing left for them, and the whole Russian mob breathing down their necks, the pair head for Bohan.
Bring on the Bohan!
Okay.
Thank God you're okay. Mwah, mwah. Both of you.
We're broke and on the run.
No, I'm from up here, Nico. I know a bunch of people who might be able to help out. Why don't you come and meet me at the community center later on? I gotta go to work. Bye, Papi. Mwah, mwah. And have a shower. You smell a little, mature.
So, I guess we start again.
Sure. I'm going out.
Despite their predicament, I don't think things are so bad right now for Nico and Roman. For one, this apartment is way better than the last one they had. Also, despite being on the run, you can go back to Broker to do whatever despite the Russians looking for Nico. It's not like in GTA 3 where if you piss off the triads, they'll shoot you on sight every time you pass their turf. And Mallory manages to do them a solid and help Nico get some work. Time to go meet some new and exciting characters.
How'd I look, man?
You look good.
Do I look gay?
No, not at all. It's a very manly kind of dance.
Okay, so here we go then. Yeah. See, it's the streets, man. But people gotta understand the struggles. For real, you know what I'm saying? They gotta understand the struggles, yeah.
First is Manny Escuela, former gangbanger now turned community activist. He sees himself as a vigilante and a savior of the streets, wanting to clean up South Bohan and get rid of its drug dealers, which he employs Nico in helping him out with. But he's completely full of shit, and really it's all about fame and stardom for him, bringing his cameraman around with them to try and sell a TV show, and claiming credit for the work he pays Nico to do. First job is hunting down some local drug dealers, following them to their hangout in a soda factory, and naturally, taking them all out. Next, he introduces us to Detective Francis McCreary, and has us take out some gangbangers in a garage, the game teaching us how to drive by. Though by this point, I've had to shoot and chase after targets several times, so it's kinda weird the game only properly teaches a player how to drive by now, several hours in. While helping the savior of the streets, I went back to do some more work for Brucey. First we kill a guy who owes him money.
Lal Rivas, I got a message from Brucey for you.
Brucey? I thought he was joking. Shit!
Steal a nice ride for him. Catfish some guy on the internet in order to kill him.
Hey, are you my date? Thank God.
And hey, is this Nikocado avocado?
I love cheese.
And finally, get into a street race. And despite how I whined about the driving before, the comment we used for the race handled really well and made the race pretty easy. Too bad this car is way too nice, and I don't want it destroyed, so I just parked it in front of my apartment and never used it again. Does anyone else have that problem in GTA games? I swear, it's like the whole can't use an elixir in RPGs just in case you need it problem. But then you end up with dozens of elixirs by the time you fight the final boss.
It's lonely at the top. Sometimes the juice, it just takes control. Okay, red mist descends, and I need shit to happen to people.
Are you talking about roid rage? Is that why I killed those men?
Oh, they were bad cats, Nicky.
While talking to Brucey, it turns out that most of the unnecessary violence he had you commit may have been roid rage induced. Oh, Brucey. With that, Nico and Brucey end their professional relationship. But you can still call him up to hang out and for more street races. Returning to Bohan, Mallory introduces us to another friend of hers, and thankfully one who isn't annoying like Manny. Elizabeta Torres. She's running a massive drug operation in Bohan, cutting deals with different groups around the city, along with introducing us to characters we'll be working with in the future. First job has Nico working with Packy McCreary, and has him overseeing a drug deal he's handling. And when things inevitably go south, he needs to protect them using a sniper rifle. I'll talk more about Packy when we get to his missions. Next up, Elizabeta gets us in contact with Johnny Klebitz, VP of the Lost in the Damned Biker Club, and the main character of the Lost in the Damned DLC. I'll be honest, there isn't really much to Johnny's character here. They don't really flesh him out till the DLC, and he might as well be a disposable NPC during the 2 missions he shows up for in the main game. Along for the ride this mission is Playboy X, friend of Elizabeta, and head of his own drug operation. Playboy X has built himself a good lifestyle thanks to the drug game. Owning an impressive penthouse, the kid has dreams of even more wealth, wanting to go legit someday, and eventually give back to the people. But as Nico points out, he can already do that if he wanted to. In reality, Playboy X isn't really all that different from Manny, but I'll talk about him more later. The trio do a heroin deal with a buyer Elizabeta has some misgivings about. Arriving at the meeting place, the buyers immediately give themselves up as LCPD.
Got the heroin, correct? You're carrying it, correct? I mean, it's a simple question.
What's wrong with you? You're being weird.
Not weird, man. I just want to know if you're carrying the stuff, right?
You ain't right, friend.
No,
Come on, let's get out of here.
LCPD! Freeze! I said freeze!
The feds come down hard, with Johnny disappearing and leaving Nico and Playboy X to fight their way out and escape. This one can be tough as there are swarms of cops everywhere. They tend to have a good vantage point every time you ascend a floor, and some are rocking body armor, making them harder to gun down. Once you get Playboy back to his penthouse, he'll call Nico later for some work. Around this time, a question mark will pop up on the map, and heading over to it, we meet up with Francis McCreary. I don't really know why they bothered to mark him off with a question mark, considering we already met him through Manny. When I saw it, at first I thought it was the assassination missions being unlocked, but that's not till later and it uses a different symbol. Typical of any police officer in a GTA game, Francis is less than squeaky clean, as he needs Nico's help in silencing someone who has evidence on his nefarious deeds. Nico needs to meet the blackmailer in a public spot and call him, using the phone call to try and figure out who he is in the crowd. It's an interesting gimmick, but just feels pointless as it's pretty easy to figure out who he is. That mission where you have to kill some terrorist leader in GTA V did it a lot better, as you had to use more clues to narrow down the suspect at a house party, instantly fail if you kill the wrong target, and fail if you kill the right target without the corresponding information first. Missions for Francis usually have you covering up loose ends to cover his ass, like interviewing at a law firm, killing the lawyer who has dirt on Francis, and stealing the evidence. Or killing some gangbangers who know about his corruption. The choice system will pop up again here, as you can choose to spare Clarence Little instead of killing him for Francis. Though if you do spare him, and run into him later, he'll still try and kill Nico. So really, your choice doesn't do much outside of delaying Clarence's inevitable death. During this time, Elizabeta will call up angry, arguing with Lil Jacob on the other end, asking Nico to come through and mediate, as apparently he's the only person who actually understands Lil Jacob. Once you meet up with them, it turns out that Lil Jacob was ripped off during a drug deal. The guy running off with Elizabeta's coke. Go out and find those responsible, put them 6 feet under, and recover the coke to give to Jacob. When we meet him though, it turns out he's not alone.
Jacob, what are you talking about? You know, I think you're smoking too much.
Yo, me think me know the eater come from in a king.
Hey, Nico. Hey, Jacob.
What are you doing here? This is no place for you, Michelle.
As it happens, it is. You see, Nico, I have been working for the government. I'm afraid it's my job to watch you. And now I have to ask you for the coke.
This is a joke, right?
Please, please don't make this harder for me than it already is.
I have to say, Michelle being a Fed is a pretty good reveal. There's some small hints about something being off with her when you first go out on a date with her, her immediate interest in Nico, the fact all of her furniture still have price tags on them, and a phone call with her that may sound like she's concerned about who Nico is working for, but actually sounds more like she's fishing for information when you listen to it again.
Hey, Nico. Mallory tells me you are working with Elizabeth and George now.
Do you two know each other? Elizabeth seems to have a lot of friends.
That's because she's a dealer, Nico. Junkies like the people who supply them with drugs. You aren't getting involved in that world, are you?
I'm trying to avoid it, Michelle. Maybe I do a few errands for Elizabeth. Nothing serious, though. I am no dealer.
If you need help with anything, Nico, just speak to me. If you want to get something off your chest, I'm a good listener, you know?
I know, Michelle. I really appreciate your concern, but I can look after myself.
Nico is obviously hurt by the betrayal and his relationship with Michelle just being a lie. But the relationship wasn't really fleshed out, mainly because you only have one required mission with Michelle, your first date with her. Outside of the occasional call, Nico never interacts with her unless you take her out on dates, so we never get a feeling for how much Nico does or doesn't care about her. And hours of game time will go by without anyone so much as mentioning her. Hell, she doesn't even call Nico as often as his other friends do. Sure hope that same problem doesn't pop up again. Michelle will let both Nico and Lil Jacob go after taking the coke off them, warning Nico that Elizabetha is about to go down, and also that her employers will be in touch. Heading back to Elizabetha, shit has indeed hit the fan as it turns out her bodyguard turned on her, and the police are closing in. She's obviously not in a good state of mind. All the coke she's snorting is not helping matters, which is why it's perfect timing for our good buddy Manny to show up. An idiotic, self-serving, fake vigilante antagonizing a coked-up drug dealer and pointing a camera in her face? It ends about as well as you would expect.
Now leave my people alone! Yo, Nico, what are you doing here?
I am not in the mood for this right now!
Adios, Manny. Elizabetha has Nico toss their bodies into her car, and he delivers their corpses to some back alley doctor, who plans to sell their organs on the streets.
Fine. Can I leave you with these or what?
Sure. I'll have these organs out on the street in no time. They're gonna help a lot of folks.
He'd been trying to help the streets his whole life. Maybe he'll actually be doing it now.
And that's the end of Elizabetha's criminal activities, as she gets picked up by the cops off screen, and apparently ends up getting 300 years in jail. Yikes. Remember, kids, say no to drugs. You know, I have to say, she's a terrible drug dealer. Every single one of her deals went bad. How she ever rose to power is beyond me. Saying goodbye to the streets of Bohan, it's time to head up to North Holland to help out Playboy X. He's chilling at his crib, and as he goes over the details of the job, we're also introduced to his friend and mentor, Dwayne Forge. Dwayne was the original leader of the drug operation Playboy X inherited, teaching him everything about dealing before he ended up in jail. Now that he's out, though, he's finding it tough to adapt to the outside, feeling his friends, Playboy included, abandoned him during his time inside. Nico, having spent some time in jail himself, and being an immigrant in a new country, sympathizes with Dwayne, forming a friendship with him and working with him too. Playboy's mission will have Nico killing mobsters at a construction site in order to assist and impress the construction site's owner, Yusuf Amir. And later on, Playboy will have Nico kill some random drug dealer who has been disrespecting him. Meanwhile, Dwayne's missions have him trying to piece together his old life. First by confronting his ex-girlfriend, who cheated on him while he was locked up, using the money he sent her for rent to give to her new boyfriend instead. Nico will get the money back and be given the choice to spare Dwayne's ex or not. Nothing changes whether you do or don't kill her, but Dwayne is relieved if you do spare a life. Afterwards, Nico will help Dwayne take control of the old strip club he used to own, by killing its current owners. During these missions, a rift will begin to grow between Playboy X and Dwayne, especially since the owners of the strip club that Nico killed were business associates of Playboy. The distrust between the two gets so big that eventually Playboy outright asks Nico to kill Dwayne. You're now given a choice on who to kill. While I've been dismissive of player choices up until now, this one does feel like it has a little bit of weight to it. If you go after Dwayne, he lets Nico do it without much of a fight, though he's still pretty hurt that Nico sided against him, having become suicidally depressed on the outside. Dwayne accepts his death, while Nico clearly struggles with carrying out what he has to do, later on calling Roman for reassurance on the choice he's made. Even Playboy X doesn't feel good about it, paying Nico 25 G's, but being so guilt-ridden, he cuts ties with Nico. However, I chose to go after Playboy X instead, fighting through his goons at his penthouse, and eventually killing him in an alleyway. Nico will now call up Dwayne and let him know what happened, the old guy pitying his protege for how far he'd fallen. Dwayne then gives Nico the deed to Playboy's penthouse, and becomes an optional friend to hang out with. If you get his friendship high enough, it unlocks the ability to call in some gangbangers as backup during missions. While Playboy isn't an outright bad guy, the game more or less steers you in this direction to kill him over Dwayne, as the reward of a new safe house is much better than the money, especially since the amount of safe houses you have in this game drop considerably compared to San Andreas. You know, I think I need a break. Maybe I should call up Roman and go bowling.
Nico, I think Roman has been kidnapped. I heard he owes some Russians money. A friend of mine saw him at that card club on Helm Point.
He owed them money?
He never tells me anything. I heard they took him to a warehouse off Lompoc and Bohan Industrial.
I'll check it out.
God damn it, Roman. This whole rescue mission is such a pain. There's just so many Russians, and every single one of them abuses cover constantly. It's not hard, it just feels like it goes on forever. Once Roman is saved, the two have a heart-to-heart over the dangers of online gambling. Things aren't all bad, though. Right around this time, Roman gets a huge payout from the insurance company thanks to his cab depot burning down. He starts up his business again, and buys an upscale apartment in Algonquin for the both of them. Looks like the cousins Bellic are really moving up in the world. Around this time, Packy will call up offering some work, inviting Nico to his place and introducing him to his family.
All I'm saying is that we'll all be judged in the end. All of your brothers. And you, Patrick. And you, Kate.
Who's gonna judge Kate? What would she win if they did? Virgin of the Year?
I'm thinking maybe you can catch VD for both, Patrick.
Katie?
Language.
Sorry, Ma. Ho, there he is, Mr. Crazy Man. You want a beer?
No.
Good, because I ain't got none.
Very funny. Maybe if being a drunkard doesn't work out, you can be a comedian.
Off. And you, Kate, off out of here.
But aren't you going to introduce us?
Sure. This is Nico, some drug-dealing degenerate from some armpit in Eastern Europe. That's my ma.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
And this is my sister. Lovely lass, scared to bits of life. And off out of here right now before I throw a bottle at her.
Patrick.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. See you around.
Is that sparks I'm seeing developing between Nico and Kate? Sure hope he isn't shoehorned into another shallow relationship the game wants us to care about. The first mission with Packy has you fight through a triad-controlled warehouse to steal a truck full of drugs and deliver them to Packy's associate, Ray Buccino. The next mission will have Nico, Packy, and two of his friends breaking into and robbing a depot belonging to the Ancelotti family, shooting your way through the mobsters before making a getaway by boat. Afterwards, Packy will ask Nico to take his sister out on a date. Despite his blessing to start wooing his sister, Nico's got to revisit his old flame first.
Hey.
Hi.
Listen, I know what you must be thinking, but don't bother.
I'm sorry, but I don't see how you know what I must be thinking.
You've killed people. You should be dead yourself. Or inside. You're just lucky it was me and not someone else who got their hooks into you. I'm sorry that I lied to you. And weirdly, in some ways, you're a nice guy. Better than the creeps I normally date.
After a less than amicable conversation, Michelle, or should I say Karen, introduces Nico to her boss. He doesn't give his name or the government group he works for, though it's apparently the Internal Affairs Agency, the GTA world's equivalent to the CIA. They're using United Liberty Paper as a front, working to weed out terrorist elements in Liberty City and recruit Nico's help whether he likes it or not. But he does dangle a pretty good carrot in front of Nico, the chance to find the man who betrayed his squad. Missions for the feds are the standard fare of go here and kill this guy. But the second mission for them is kinda interesting. Not the gameplay of the mission itself, but more so its outcome. As if you kill the intended target before killing all of his guards, one of the guards will drop his gun and surrender, giving you the choice to spare him. It's really weird. The guy doesn't have any dialogue, and I thought it was a glitch at first. And it really doesn't matter if you do or you don't kill him, but it does make me wonder if this is some kind of artifact of something bigger Rockstar had planned. Maybe missions weren't meant to be so scripted. Instead of having to kill dozens of guys along with their boss, maybe you could skip the hassle if you managed to kill your intended target first. Their goons just running off afterwards. It certainly would have been appreciated, cause good god are these missions overly scripted. But while we're talking about the quality of missions in this game, let's move on and talk about what most consider the best mission in all of GTA IV. It starts with Packy introducing Nico to his older brothers Gerald and Derek, who we'll get to know more when we work for them later. Also, I forgot to mention it before, but Francis McCreary is also their brother, the black sheep of the family who chose to be a crooked cop instead of just a regular crook. The mission this time is to rob a bank, teaming up with Derek, Packy, and Packy's friend Michael to storm the bank, take out the guards, blow the vault, and walk away with the cash.
Now listen, people. We're your friends. Me and me brother here.
Why are you telling them we're brothers, you idiot? That's gonna make it hard for them to find us, isn't it?
I'm trying to be honest with these people. We put them through a lot today.
These people, your cause. That shit's over. Ireland's not the only thing that's green. Dollars are too.
Now you said bloody Ireland. That's gonna narrow the search, ain't it?
You, take the needle out your arm, then tell me what to do.
I'll let you tell me what to do when you stop shoving half of Bolivia up your nose every Saturday night.
We told you not to with us! Shit! Michael! Saint f***ing Michael!
Naturally, things don't really go as planned. After some guy tries to play hero and wastes Michael, things quickly go off the rails. While they manage to grab as much cash as they can, they've set off the bank's alarm, summoning every cop in Liberty City. Now they have to fight their way out, first clearing the bank entrance of cops, before running and gunning through back alleys. With a chopper on them, they have to go underground through the subway to get away. Again, fighting through waves of police. Once back on the surface, it's all about stealing a ride and losing the wanted level. And I don't know, I'm not so sure this mission is as great as some people feel it is. Sure, the setup is great, especially since the whole heist is a reference to the movie Heat, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Fighting your way out of the bank and trying to escape isn't really all that different from a lot of other missions you've completed by now. Now, to be fair, I won't compare it to the heists in GTA V, as those were born from the popularity of this mission, and obviously had more thought and planning put into their design. But I will compare it to the bank heist from Vice City. Before the heist in that game can even begin, Tommy has to recruit a crew to get the job done. Once they hit the bank, Tommy and Cam will have to unlock the safe, needing the bank manager's help in getting it done. With the vault cracked and the money in hand, someone will hit the alarm and the place immediately gets swarmed, the crew now needing to get away. So while both missions follow the same beats, the execution is a lot different, with Tommy being more active in the actual robbery part, as opposed to Nico who just grabs the money once Derek blows the vault. And once the police swoop in, you actually see SWAT members dropping into the bank on ropes, instead of just waiting outside to shoot you. Now, I don't hate this mission at all. As a set piece, it really is a lot of fun. Shooting cops in the street, trying to outrun a chopper, and then making your escape through the subway. The real problem is that it's just as scripted as any other mission in this game. There's no way to do things differently or end the mission a different way. Just the path the devs laid out for you. A problem that unfortunately goes on to plague more Rockstar games going forward. After the heist, you can hang out with Packy in your spare time, and if you get his friendship up high enough, he can rig cars with car bombs. The entire map will now be completely unlocked to explore, and Nico can start working with Gerald and Derek, along with Ray Buccino. Gerald is the leader of the McCreary family mob, though technically his group is only made up of him and his brothers. His first two missions will have you destroy relations with the Ancelotti family and the Albanians. Afterwards, he gets picked up by the cops and sent to jail on racketeering charges. As for Derek, well, it seems he's really fallen off the wagon after the heist, as we find him on a park bench drunk and high out of his mind. Apparently, he's been wrestling with his past ever since he got back to Liberty City, and an old buddy of his, Buddy Sligo, threatening to kill Derek and his family. Since he's too up to do anything about it. It's up to Nico to hunt the guy down and kill him and his buddies. Later on, we have to silence another old friend of his, Aiden O'Malley, who's planning to snitch on Derek to the cops in exchange for a lighter prison sentence. With Packy's help, we intercept his prison convoy, break him out of custody, and then put a bullet in him. Aiden none the wiser it was actually a hit job and not a prison break. Also, it turns out that Derek was lying the whole time. His backstory is broken up between encounters with himself, Packy, and Francis. Derek, Buddy, and Aiden all served in the Provisional IRA together before coming to the States. While here, the trio engaged in several violent heists, apparently robbing the mob until being caught by the cops. Derek snitched on the other two, and the guilt of betraying his friends, along with being a rat, turned him into a drug addict. And instead of seeking forgiveness or admitting his betrayal, he chose to bury the past and hide what he had done. I really enjoy this twist. It makes Derek a much more complex character compared to the people we've worked for before, but I don't think the game does enough with him. And while the player can piece together the clues that Derek wasn't being truthful, Nico and Packy never figure it out, so there really aren't any consequences to his lie, though I can see it influencing a certain player choice later on. Next up is Ray Buccino, who Packy had done a couple jobs for previously. He's a capo in the Pegorino crime family, and is desperate to prove himself to his bosses and climb up the ranks in the family. But unfortunately for him, everyone can smell his desperation, and his obnoxiousness only gets him mocked by the ones he's trying to impress. Ray's mission mostly deals with the Diamonds storyline that end up connecting the main story with the two DLCs. The first part has Nico and Ray's goons dressed as garbage men and picking up the diamonds hidden in trash. His second mission will have Nico hunt down those same goons after they stole some of the diamonds for themselves. During this time, Nico's patience is really tested, not just because Ray is annoying, but because all the work he's doing isn't getting him any closer to his goal of finding the guy who betrayed his squad. It eventually boils over to the point he refuses to keep working with Ray, unless he can guarantee he can find the man he's looking for, Florian Kravich. Ray gives his word, but needs Nico to head to the Libertonian Museum first, to unload the diamonds with the help of Johnny.
Gentlemen, pardon the precautions. You know how things are.
No problem.
Let's do this.
Okay, let's see the stuff, gentlemen. Maury, come over here.
Whoa. Since we're having a little show and tell, let's see some money.
Of course, no problem. There it is. Beautiful, huh? Unmarked bills. No history, no need to launder.
Good. Nico, show him the stuff.
Get in there, Maury.
Isaac, look at them.
Gorgeous, huh? Like condensed money.
Isaac, these are great.
Oh! Rest of you motherfuckers wanna die? Do something stupid, okay? Go! Just get the shit, man! Come on!
During the exchange with the Jewish mob, Luis Lopez, main character of the Ballad of Gay Tony, crashes the party. He kills one of the Jewish mobsters and takes the diamonds. Meanwhile, Johnny makes away with the cash, leaving Nico to fight his way out of the museum. You know, the setup for this mission is so awkward. I know it's meant to be the key that connects all of the lead's stories, but playing it for the first time, you're just left scratching your head wondering what's going on. While you technically saw Luis before during the bank heist, he didn't actually do anything outside of trying to talk that one guy out of shooting Nico and the crew. So him showing up here out of nowhere raises more questions, like how he knew when and where the deal was taking place and who he might be working for. And once again, Johnny disappears as soon as shit hits the fan. Was it really that hard to just have him fight his way out with Nico? I know the DLC fills in the blanks, but if this is your first time playing GTA 4, or you just never play the DLC, it just feels like there's cut content missing. It weirdly reminds me of the vanilla release of Final Fantasy XV. During that game, at certain points, members of Noctis's group disappear for random story reasons. But we never actually see what they were doing. And they come back having some off-screen character development, but they don't actually explain what the hell happened. Like GTA IV, you only got the full picture by buying the DLC related to those characters, or if you bought the Royale version later on. Though it's arguably way worse than Final Fantasy XV since Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto are your main party members for the entire game, so them disappearing for a few hours with barely any explanation ended up making the experience really disjointed. Rockstar must have felt the same way about the way they handled the leads, which is why we got 3 leads in GTA V, slowly unlocking each one, giving them their own stories before bringing them together, along with using the character switching system to swap between them when the player feels like it. While I was a bit critical about GTA V way back at the beginning of the video, I'll give Rockstar credit for fixing issues from GTA IV, even if not everything lands.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
The diamonds being stolen have put Ray Buccino in a bad spot, as this huge blunder is just another mark against him in the eyes of his bosses. But despite the huge cock-up, he does honor his word and puts Nico in contact with someone who knows how to find Florian Kravitch. Nico calls up Roman to come with him to confront Florian, and once they get there, they don't exactly find what they were expecting.
Nico, be calm! Be calm!
Kom! Florian! Oddesonsbok tebe, Drkagior! Otvori! Florian! I've come for you, Florian.
Oh! Go away!
Florian. Yesitoti.
Nico? What the hell are you doing here?
What happened to you?
Oh, I started working out. You know, toned up the,
Florian? You used to work in the abattoir?
Oh, don't remind me. Roman? You put on a few vanity pounds. What are you guys doing here? Why did you kick my door down?
I've come to ask you some questions.
It wasn't you, was it?
What wasn't me?
Who set us up? It was you or Darko. I thought it must be him.
As it turns out, Florian is no longer the man Nico remembers, having completely transformed himself when coming to Liberty City, becoming Bernie Crane and no longer having to hide his homosexuality. The confrontation between the two reveals that the traitor must be Darko Brevic, who could be anywhere in Eastern Europe. This leaves Nico shook up, as the time and work he put in Liberty City almost feels like it was for nothing, now that he knows Florian wasn't the traitor. And while he knows that it's Darko he's after, without his exact location, he won't be able to go after him and get his revenge. Nico doesn't pout for long though, as the contact with United Liberty Paper reaches out.
So I hear you found the big bad monster you were on. Bernie Crane, the muscle Mary? Come on. You think I wouldn't have fingered him in a second if he was your guy?
You could have told me he was here.
I'm helping you find the man you're after. I'm not some reunite old boyfriend service. Look, I was in the army. I know it gets lonely. I know what it feels like to get close to a man.
I'm sure you do, but you said you'd help me.
I've already helped you, but I'll help you again. Wait for me to be in touch.
While he's more or less been a dismissive asshole the whole time we've worked for him, and I'm not 100% sure everyone we've killed for him actually deserved it, the old guy promises Nico he'll do what he can to find Darko. Around this time, Nico will receive a call from Francis McCreary, who thinks his brother Derek is going to sell him out to a news reporter about his corruption, in order to continue feeding his drug habit. He arranges a meeting with his brother, and wants Nico to kill him. While prepping for the mission, Derek will call too, feeling he's being set up and asking Nico to kill Francis instead. So you'll be given a choice on which brother to take out. Taking out Derek pays $10,000, or $20,000 if you call Francis to blackmail him while on the roof, with the ability to lose your wanted level up to 3 stars anytime you call him. While killing Francis only really rewards a friendship bonus with Packy. Again, it doesn't really change anything outside of which brother gets buried in the next mission, with the surviving brother disappearing from the plot soon after. While Francis does offer the better deal, Derek is just so pitiful I ended up putting a bullet through Francis instead. With McCreary blood on his hands, now is a perfect opportunity to take out Kate and get to know her better.
Top, no nice way to say this. It's not really working. I'm not really feeling the pants. I'm not really feeling the shoes.
Geez, Kate, what the hell? Why are you so damn shallow? Kate is a little more fleshed out compared to the plank of wood Michelle was when dating her. She's the voice of reason and the innocent one in her family of criminals, taking care of their mother while her brothers do jail stints. Also, she thinks Nico is really nice and should give up the criminal life and settle down one day. And that's about it. There's just no chemistry with these two. Their friends and family act like they belong together, but why? Because they made googly eyes at each other in one cinematic, and that's it? Like how I complained about Michelle earlier, the player isn't going to care about Kate unless you give us some kind of reason to. We've worked for all her brothers at this point. Why not a few missions with her? Obviously, she won't have Nico killing people for petty reasons, but it's not hard to come up with something. Use those missions to grow and explore the relationship. Or just have her show up in more missions. Maybe trying to talk Nico out of doing a job. Or Nico just coming to her for moral support after shit goes bad. The dialogue with her during dates just doesn't really cut it. When it comes right down to it, the game ships these two together for only one reason. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Florian, open the door. Nemo Peder.
Govor Ingleski, and I told you it's Bernie.
Despite kicking in his door and threatening his life, Florian...
Bernie!
Right, Bernie, sorry, is pretty chill about the whole ordeal and tries to make friends with Nico. On the surface, Bernie is basically every gay stereotype rolled into one. Effeminate voice and mannerisms, always talking about clothing, men, or brunch, secretly dating a conservative man in a position of power. You know, the usual stuff. But dig a little deeper and there's an actual character behind all the gay jokes. Like Nico and Darko, he's the only other survivor of the ambush that killed their army squadron. While Nico became obsessed with revenge, going down a life of crime and never getting over what happened, Bernie used that traumatic event to start his life over and embrace who he really is. He'll initially call Nico for help dealing with some homophobe who's been harassing him at the park.
Why don't you pick on someone who'll fight back?
What's your problem?
Whatever you say, buddy. Unfortunately, for hitting my friend, I'm going to kick the shit out of you.
And having to deal with Dimitri's men who are trying to blackmail Bryce Dawkins.
Where's Bryce? We wanted to speak to him, not his rent boys.
By exposing his relationship with Bernie. But for his last mission, he'll want to take Nico out on a picnic on a boat.
I'm so excited!
What are we doing here?
We're going to have fun!
Fun?
Yes! It's a four-letter word, I know, but we can still try.
Look, more people want me dead than alive. I'm working for the mafia. The police and the government agency are both on my case. I kill and steal to scrape together a living so that my cousin can fritter it away online and pay off debts. And all the while, people are trying to kill us. What is fun?
Honey, you are stressed.
Seeing as how Nico is the only person who knows both sides of Bernie, and that he can see his old friend is majorly stressed out, he hopes their picnic date can help him relax a little bit. Unfortunately, Dimitri's men end up ruining their time together. Dimitri. While their time together really doesn't help Nico all that much, he is starting to consider letting go of his past and trying to move on. And Bernie does do him a solid by giving him Bryce's Infernus sports car. And once again, I park it in front of the house and do absolutely nothing with it. From here, we're slowly circling the end of the game, with only a handful of missions for some new and old associates left. First, we're back to working for Gerald McCreary, this time taking orders from him while he's in jail. He'll have Nico kidnap Gracie Ancelotti, estranged daughter of Giovanni Ancelotti, head of the Ancelotti crime family. He plans to ransom her to her father, in exchange for the diamonds that were stolen earlier. Later on, once her dad agrees to the terms, he sends Luis and Gay Tony to facilitate the exchange. But like every mission involving these diamonds, things don't go smoothly.
Nika Bellic, how is it that whenever something is stolen from me, you're not far away?
I have never stolen anything from you, Mr. Bulgarin.
This man, the big Pedic and his Dominican beach, they stole my diamonds. And you have been trying to rob the thieves, to rob me. Conchai!
I don't care what you did to that man, but we ain't leaving here without them diamonds.
As Bulgarin shows up again, disrupting the deal and claiming the diamonds belonged to him in the first place. Cue another long, drawn-out shooting sequence where Nico and Packy fight off Bulgarin's goons and end up losing the diamonds yet again. You know, Bulgarin is a complete waste of a character in this game. For someone who has a massive history with Nico and is partially responsible for him running to America, he only shows up twice over the game. And yeah, I know they bring him back for the Ballad of Gay Tony, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense that you'd shift him from being Nico's personal enemy to Louise. While it's extremely predictable, I always assumed it would take the course of Nico taking out Dimitri, and with Bulgarin more or less serving as the final boss. But nope, he just shows up, says some mean things to Nico, and disappears from the plot. With the diamond exchange a bust, we say our goodbyes to Gerald, who's looking at a very long prison sentence. Our old pal Ray Buccino will call up and put Nico in direct contact with his boss, Jimmy Pegorino. Jimmy is desperate to gain the approval and acknowledgement of the Commission, a group made up of the 5 most powerful mafia families in Liberty City. His missions are mostly about trying to gain a seat at the table with the other families. First by trying to make an offering to the Pavano family. The mission, like several of them at this point, will have Nico watching over the exchange in case things go bad. And I'm extremely embarrassed to admit this, but I wasted so much time trying to figure out how to get to the vantage point. My dumbass not realizing I was supposed to go through a door the mission spawned me in front of. As always, things do indeed go wrong. Nico having to snipe a few Pavano goons before going down on foot to save Jimmy. But we still have to get the offering for the Pavanos back, having to chase after them while dodging a swarm of bullets. And if there isn't a better example of Rockstar's scripted bullshit than it's this mission. You can't just shoot at them to take out their tires or kill the driver. You instead have to follow them so they crash, and then you can kill them. Shooting at their car too much can cause Nico to destroy the offering of cash. Somehow. So it ends up dragging out what's already a very long and annoying mission. Afterwards, Jimmy will want payback, and have Nico follow a high-ranking Pavano member and kill him with a ton of his goons. As things go on, the situation gets increasingly worse for Jimmy, as he loses more and more respect from the Commission, and as it turns out, the feds are onto him, with several of his crew turning rat. First is his personal bodyguard, Anthony, who we've seen him verbally abuse several times now. Jimmy confronts him and ends up giving the guy a heart attack. But since it's no guarantee he'll die, Nico has to get into the hospital to finish him off. This mission does give you some wiggle room to approach it a little bit differently, as you can find some nurses' scrubs to sneak into his room and disconnect his life support, as opposed to doing what I did.
Bang! Try to shoot him in the back.
Afterwards, Jimmy points the finger at Ray Buccino as another rat and wants him dealt with too. So I'll be honest, I didn't really think much of going after Ray at first, with the way everyone belittles him and looks down on him, along with his drive to impress his bosses when you first meet him. Him being a rat would make sense if he hit his breaking point, and realized it's just not worth the hassle of working for an ungrateful asshole like Jimmy. But as I went back through my footage while writing the script, I kind of realized there wasn't anything that actually pointed to Ray being a rat. The implications are sorta there, but really you're just taking it at Jimmy's word, and Nico not really liking Ray in the first place, so he doesn't have much reason to question Jimmy's orders. The game never really answers this question one way or the other, but it paints a picture of Jimmy becoming increasingly paranoid and desperate, someone Nico really needs to start questioning his loyalty to. While working for Jimmy, the shady government guy that Nico's been working with will put him in contact with the Gambetti crime family, run by the aging and in poor health John Gravelli. His missions will have Nico protect a politician giving a speech about the increasing gang violence from foreign gangs in the city, destroying a counterfeit money operation, and destroying drug vans belonging to the Ancelotti crime family, supplied by our good old friend Dimitri. All this work finally gets Niko what he wants, as Darko Brevich will be smuggled into the country for him. Once he gets the call, Niko picks up Roman and heads to the meeting place to confront Darko over what he did all those years ago.
You remember me?
Pusti me, ne poznajem te. I don't know you.
Yes, you do. I'm the one who survived.
Niko, hello.
Reci mi zašto?
Zašto?
Zato što smo bili prijatelji. Svi smo odrasli zajedno. Mitar, Dragan, Goran, Mio. Mogu da nastavim. Sviju, a?
We were friends, but I had other friends. Friends that Goran and his guys killed. My fucking neighbors. Because of what? Because of shit. Lies. Lies.
So that makes it okay to stab your friends in the back?
When everything you believe is shown to be shit, you make strange choices.
You? Strange choices? How much?
1,000.
You killed my friends for $1,000.
How much do you charge to kill someone?
You ruined me, you
I needed the money. I had problems.
You're a junkie.
Kill me then! You fucking hypocrite. Trust me. You'll be doing me a favor. Ah!
Out of the 3 survivors of the ambush, Darko was the one who had it the worst, betraying his friends for a measly $1,000 just to feed his drug habit. He explains that his betrayal wasn't all about the drugs, as apparently a few members of his squad had killed his friends and neighbors, making him question his loyalty during the war. Roman tries to get Niko to let Darko go. As the pathetic state he's in, living with his guilt feels like a more fitting punishment. Niko will now have a choice in whether to kill or spare Darko. Kill him, and Niko will empty 12 bullets into Darko, one for each of their squad mates he betrayed, with the man thanking Niko as he dies, the whole experience leaving Niko empty. But spare him, and he'll take off running, never to be heard or seen again. And with that, Niko finally lets go of his past and agrees with Roman that this is a much better punishment for Darko. As Niko prepares to move on with his life, Roman lets him know he's proposed to Mallory, with the 2 of them planning to get married soon. With that, Niko has just one job left to go, before wrapping this story up in a tight little bow and living happily ever after. But things are never that easy, are they? Here we are, boys and girls, the end of the game. If you want to avoid spoilers for both endings, skip to this timestamp here. Jimmy Pegorino will call up Niko, wanting him to facilitate a heroin deal between some buyers and the Russians. His final chance at trying to get on the commission. Unfortunately, that means working directly with that snake Dimitri. Niko argues against it, asking Pegorino to find someone else instead, as there's no way he can cut a deal with Dimitri with the past the 2 share. Jimmy doesn't want to hear it though, demanding Niko take part. At first threatening him, but softening up a bit, and telling him Phil Bell will mostly be handling the deal, and he won't even have to deal with Dimitri. Phil being someone I completely skipped over, but he works for Pegorino, is his only loyal capo left, and may or may not be having an affair with Pegorino's wife. Nico reluctantly agrees, and is called by Roman and Kate afterwards. Roman is ecstatic about the deal, under the belief that Nico and Dimitri have made peace, and lets slip Dimitri's current location. Despite everything that Dimitri has done to him, Roman is willing to let all of that go from the money that can be earned from the deal. While talking to Kate, Nico will explain his misgivings about the deal and not wanting to break the oath he made about going after Dimitri. While she doesn't know the whole situation, Kate advises Nico to stick to his principles and forget about the money. You're now given one last choice, and probably the only one that actually matters in the whole game. Make the deal or get revenge. First, let's go with the ending I didn't choose, making the deal.
Big Phil, what's up?
We're going to Port Tudor. Let's move.
Nico will pick up Phil and head to the warehouse where they're supposed to pick up the money after Dimitri has sold the heroin. Once inside, Dimitri will call up and reveal that he's killed the buyers and kept the heroin, telling Nico he should try his luck at getting the money if he can manage to survive. Pissed off, Nico and Phil do just that, fighting their way through to find the buyer with the money, eventually chasing him down and getting the cash. While pissed at yet again being betrayed by Dimitri, Nico decides he needs to let it go, taking his cut of the money and walking away from the criminal life. Pegorino later calls him up and thanks him for a good job, uncaring that Dimitri's betrayal almost killed Phil and Nico. We now skip to Roman and Mallory's wedding. The pair now starting a new chapter in their lives with friends and family cheering happily. I guess the real Grand Theft Auto 4 was the friends we made along the way.
Yes, thank you for coming. Okay. Yes.
Michael, really? Yes?
Okay, thank you.
A gift from Dmitri Raskolov.
Oh my God! Bomboklad! Yo, Nico! Calm down, man, yo. Easy.
He told me to leave it. I left it.
Nico, get up, man, get up.
Oh,
Gotta
man.
get you out of here, police them soon come. Don't worry, man, me find Dimitri and me call you. Leave.
Okay.
Once again, Dimitri shows just how much of a snake he is, sending a hitman after Nico and getting Roman killed in the crossfire. Lil Jacob will reach out when he gets a beat on Dimitri, calling Nico when he's found one of Pegorino's boys, the pair following the car all the way to an old casino. Nico will now have to fight through an army of goons, but it's hard to say whether Jimmy Pegorino himself was even involved with the hit on Nico, as he's betrayed by Dimitri and killed before saying anything about it. Dimitri will try to escape by helicopter, Nico having to give chase by speedboat. Soon Lil Jacob will return, having somehow gotten a hold of an Apache helicopter. You'll now have to follow Dimitri all over Liberty City, trying to shoot him down and avoiding the rockets he's firing. Eventually, Lil Jacob will get lucky with his shots, by which I mean you'll reach the scripted spot where Dimitri's helicopter gets shot down, your own helicopter going down with him. Both groups will land on Happiness Island. Nico will wipe out what's left of Dimitri's men, and finally put an end to that snake.
Welcome to America.
You little nuts! I'm a Romy!
Speak English. You're a strange man. You killed your best friend. You betrayed everyone who ever came in contact with you. You killed my cousin. I guess the survival of the fittest thing really meant a lot to you.
He'll reflect on how Roman didn't deserve what happened to him, and never hurt anyone, standing there and watching as Dimitri dies from his injuries. After the credits roll, Mallory will call, still devastated by the loss of Roman, and revealing she's pregnant, worried about raising their child all alone. But before we unpack this ending, let's roll things back and go over the choice I actually made, the revenge ending. Here, Nico, knowing full well Dimitri will most likely betray him, and Pegorino, decides to confront him and put an end to that snake once and for all. Nico will head to the docks where Dimitri and his operation is set up, fighting his way through a ship full of his goons, making his way to the controls to the hull below, opening a path and confronting Dimitri down below. Dimitri will beg to be spared, but Nico puts 2 shots in his knees before finishing him off once and for all.
I should have put you out of your misery a long time ago. Goodbye, Dimitri.
Returning home, Phil Bell will call up, agreeing with Nico's decision, but letting him know that Jimmy is falling apart, and that their crime family is done for. The next day, we'll have Nico go to Roman's wedding like before, but picking up Kate and driving her there on the way. It's happily ever after again.
Congratulations, cousin.
Thanks for coming.
All right, yes, okay. There we go. Okay, yes, we are married. Okay.
Come here.
Nico,
Yo! Double-crossing immigrant shit! Get on.
Oh, come on, this blood clot. Nico. Nico, come on. Oh, somebody call an ambulance. Call a ambulance!
She's dead!
What? Oh, shit. Shit.
She told me to leave it. I thought I had. I thought it was over.
It's never over, Aya. Nico, you can't blame yourself.
Of course I can! She's dead!
Easy. Are you better, man? Easy. Calm down, man. Calm down. Nico, you have to get out of here. Yes, go on, man. Go on, man. We have to leave, man. Just leave. Get out of here. Don't worry, we take care of this, man.
Okay.
Nope, this time Pegorino does the job himself, but ends up killing Kate instead of Nico. Like the first ending, the beats are mostly the same, with Lil Jacob once again helping and tracking down Pegorino's location. This time Roman will come too. Fight your way through the same building, and this time chase Pegorino by bike while he leaves on boat. Lil Jacob and Roman will show up on the helicopter again, and after leaping onto it, chase after Pegorino. The fight once again ends at Happiness Island, Nico picking off what's left of Pegorino's goons, and finally killing the bastard.
I told you to leave me alone.
I give the orders here. Me!
You're not looking so good there, Jimmy.
Screw you.
What the f*** did she ever do to you?
I wanted you immigrant dipshit.
Big talk. You want to know something funny?
Not really.
The commission. The old families. I know some of those guys. And they thought you were a fat joke.
Whatever.
A joke!
He reflects on losing Kate, and after the credits, it will be Roman this time calling to reveal Mallory's pregnancy, offering his cousin his condolences and revealing he plans to name his child Kate if they have a girl. Packy will also call up, devastated at the loss of his sister, and worried about who will be there for his mother now that his brothers are either dead or locked up. So I have mixed feelings about both endings to GTA IV. As far as I know, neither ending is confirmed as canon, but I consider the deal ending the non-canon version for several reasons. The deal ending really has Nico go out of his way to act like an idiot, and just forget everything that Dimitri's done up until this point. While you could say the call from Roman was enough to sway him, or even his choice with what to do with Darko affected him, I don't think it's that easy. Dimitri has done absolutely nothing before this point to make us think he will change. Several times throughout the game, he's called to taunt Nico just for the hell of it. And after the initial betrayal, he still had Roman kidnapped and tortured by his goons, while trying to get Nico's location out of him. Not only that, but Nico has been actively antagonizing Dimitri as well, screwing up a lot of his drug operations and deals, especially towards the end of the game. There was absolutely no way either of them was going to let go of their history together. A fact that's proven when Dimitri screws over Nico again during the deal. Something that really should have solidified Nico going after him, as opposed to just letting it go and walking away from the life. It's hard to say where Jimmy Pecorino falls in line during this ending, but he knew from both Phil and Nico that Dimitri almost got them both killed, so there really shouldn't be any reason he trusts Dimitri either. You can argue he was blinded by the success of the mission and finally being on top again, but it still feels like a stupid move from him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he probably didn't know that Dimitri put a hit on Nico, but it's hard to believe he didn't know in some way, especially with Nico coming after his men. The revenge ending, meanwhile, has everyone behave exactly like you'd expect, with Nico going after Dimitri before he goes after him. And since this was Pegorino's chance to finally build up his crime family after all his losses, it makes perfect sense for his anger to drive him to want to kill Nico, even if it doesn't make the most sense that he'd do the job himself. But most likely he wanted the satisfaction of putting down the guy who screwed him over. Roman or Kate dying is obviously supposed to be ironic, the one who told Nico which option to choose, paying for those consequences. But Roman dying has way more weight to it than Kate dying. Roman has been with us through the beginning, his and Nico's relationship being built out throughout the game, with time and time again showing just how protective of Roman Nico is, and how much he regrets his criminal life screwing over Roman. And the game twists the knife further when we find out Mallory's pregnant, and Roman's child will grow up without their father. His death just has more weight to it. And once again, Nico's choices have negatively impacted Roman's life, in this case causing his death. But the Kate ending, on the other hand, just doesn't have the emotional impact, and that's because Kate is way too flat of a character. From the first scene she's introduced, the game is trying its absolute hardest to convince us that she and Nico belong together. Both of them take an immediate interest in each other, but for no real reason other than just being attracted to each other. Even if you do bother to take Kate out on dates, which again isn't mandatory, there just isn't much chemistry between the two. Conversations boiling down to Kate trying to get Nico to not be bad anymore, and Nico saying he doesn't know how to not be bad. I brought it up earlier, but there really should have been mandatory missions involving Kate. Or maybe she should have replaced Michelle completely, showing up way earlier in the game. That way, like Roman, the player can spend more time with her. We can watch her relationship with Nico grow, and see how his choices impact her life. As outside of murdering one of her brothers, which she doesn't know about, Nico's actions don't really affect Kate at all. Part of me thinks that Kate is used this way because Nico can date other girls he meets online, and still go to strip clubs. So maybe they didn't want to paint Nico as this unfaithful hypocrite if his relationship with Kate runs all game long, especially since Nico criticized Roman for cheating on Mallory. So while the game doesn't have a good or bad ending, I'd say it has more of a bad ending and a bittersweet ending, as it stings a lot less to lose Kate than it does to lose Roman. But having replayed the game yet again, it's time to answer the question I brought up back at the beginning. Was Grand Theft Auto 4 always a good game? Or did it just feel better because I didn't like GTA 5? Well, I think I have to lean more towards the former. It's by no means a masterpiece, but it's still up there in terms of quality. Ask anyone, even people who didn't enjoy the game, and chances are they'll still tell you this game had the best story out of the whole series. Actual work and effort was put into fleshing out Nico, his friends, and the people he'd be working for. It wasn't this random list of missions woven together to make a game. Nico's journey made sense based on the people he met and the choices he made. I won't act like it's the best story ever written, especially because of how both endings turn out, but it was much better than the previous trilogy, with GTA 3 being a basic revenge story at its core, Vice City just being Scarface the game before Scarface the game, and San Andreas combining a bunch of hood movies together, but lacking any of their seriousness. I think GTA 4's bigger problems are the things it left out and its missions. You couldn't customize Nico the same way you could CJ. You didn't have the option to buy safe houses across the map, and are limited to the 5 the game gives you. And this also limits the amount of cars you can hold on to, as the parking space outside of safe houses only let you park 2 cars at most. The weapon variety was boring compared to previous games. Once you get to your first gun shop, you're not really going to unlock any more interesting weapons, and outside of a few missions, most players are just going to stick to an assault rifle to end firefights fast. Planes were also gone, so you were stuck using a helicopter to fly around and take in the sights of Liberty City, which, like the cars, can be difficult to handle and get used to. But I think the missions are its biggest problems, as too many of them are the go here first, then go here, then kill this guy type of mission. And most are too scripted. Sometimes you can kill someone as they're driving away, other times their car might as well be bulletproof because you can't kill them till they get where they need to be first. I know some didn't like that they shrunk the map compared to San Andreas, but I think it's fine. I think it would be too empty if it was any bigger. While it has a decent amount of things to do, I still feel like Liberty City can feel barren at times, with only a few options on where to eat, play games, or take someone to a club. Things like the car wash feel like an unnecessary novelty, as the pay and spray could have served the same function. I brought it up before, but the player choice system doesn't feel fleshed out either, as outside of sparing Darko or the endings, not much changes in story for your choices to matter all that much. But I do enjoy some of the new things it tried out. The music in the game is fine, I guess. Outside of a few tracks, the entire soundtrack is licensed music. This makes my take on the music a lot more subjective, especially as my tastes have changed since I was a kid. When I was younger, I definitely remember liking it more, especially the Beat 102.7 and San Juan sounds, with artists like Nas, Kanye West, Fat Joe, and Daddy Yankee. While I more or less still like the music in the game, during this playthrough I was more into the radio shows on Integrity 2.0, Public Liberty Radio, and WKTT Radio. It was just funny to hear the comedic takes on conservative and liberal views from the mid-2000s. And while it still has that dated brown look of the 7th generation, I still think the graphics look pretty good, and does a pretty good job of setting the tone most of the time. To sum up my thoughts, Grand Theft Auto 4 was a great game that, unfortunately due to game journalists overhyping it, set up the wrong expectations of what the game really was, leaving a lot of fans feeling like it was overrated. It took the series in a more serious direction, one that really isn't all that different from Red Dead Redemption, for example, but one that may have been too serious for its fanbase at the time. It didn't help that Saints Row 2 would release a few months later and stick to a more comedic tone compared to 4. The Lost in the Dam DLC and the Ballad of Gay Tony would go on to add back in some of the things that were lacking from the base release, and depending on who you ask, it either succeeded in redeeming the whole experience, or felt like it was too little too late. But for me, it was fun to come back to this version of Liberty City and revisit these characters. While Nico may not be the best written character in the world, I found him a lot more interesting than other GTA protagonists. I think this game is absolutely worth playing. So if you're not a fan of GTA 5 or have just been tired of only having that to play for the last 10 years, try GTA 4 instead. You may be surprised how you feel about the game, especially if you were like me and didn't like it at first. You know, when this came out, I thought Rockstar was trying to leech off the popularity of Sons of Anarchy. If you weren't around then, it's hard to overstate just how huge Sons of Anarchy was at the time. A modern-day Hamlet story told through the lens of a biker gang. It follows main character Jax Teller, the VP of Sam Crow. That stands for the Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club Redwood Original. The story follows Jack's life as a biker, the feuds his club gets into, their run-ins with the law, and Jack's trying to understand the circumstances behind his father's mysterious death. It had some amazing performances with Charlie Hunnam as the main character Jax, Ron Perlman as Clay Morrow, Jack's stepfather and current acting president of Sam Crow, and Katie Seagal as Jack's mother and Clay's wife, Gemma Taylor-Morrow. While it wasn't a perfect show, and I still have some mixed feelings about its ending 8 years later, I absolutely loved it. So it didn't surprise me that some video game company would try to capitalize on the show's popularity, but as it turns out, it was most likely a complete coincidence. GTA IV was originally released in April of 2008. Sons of Anarchy would debut on FX 5 months later, in September of 2008. And another 5 months after that, The Lost in the Damned DLC would be released in February of 2009. Needless to say, 5 months isn't enough dev time to flesh out a game, even if it's just an 8-hour DLC expansion, and the base GTA IV experience already laid the groundwork for those expansions. So Rockstar likely had most of the content for The Lost in the Damned worked out way before Sons officially debuted. The Lost in the Damned DLC stars Johnny Klebitz, who previously showed up twice during the main story, but you didn't really learn much about him during those appearances. He's the VP of the Lost in the Damned Motorcycle Club, and technically their acting president while their real prez is in rehab. He's rather level-headed and laid back, quick to sarcasm, and just as quick to call people out on their bullshit. Not unlike Nico, though Johnny tends to be more brash and disrespectful when talking back. He avoids acting impulsively, approaches situations rationally, and tries not to get in over his head. This tends to get him bumping heads with his longtime friend and president of their biker club, Billy Gray. The opening of the game has Johnny and his club right off to pick up Billy, who is fresh out of rehab. The gang will meet up with him as he's talking to his sponsor and parole officer. He got picked up on a drug trafficking charge and somehow managed to cut himself a deal of doing court-ordered rehab instead of jail time. Billy paints himself as having turned over a new leaf, dedicated to being clean and staying clean.
Yes, Daddy.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir.
But it's obvious he's full of shit, something his parole officer picks up on. But Billy's sponsor is oblivious to his true nature. Johnny will hand Billy his cut, and the gang will all drive off back to their clubhouse.
About time. Home sweet home.
Come on, give me that goddamn bottle, brother. Yes, fuck the glass.
Johnny, what's going on?
Not much, Bill. Usual stuff.
We missed you, Bill. So, aching for a drink here?
Amiguito.
Come on, just pour a Willie Wetback.
Boys?
Some wet pussy and dry tequila.
Salud. Okay, another round for him. Goddamn right.
Yummy. So, Johnny boy, where's my bike?
Things aren't all sunshine and rainbows with the gang's illustrious leader returning, as once they arrive, Billy immediately starts giving Johnny shit about his bike. While he was gone, the Lost were facing financial issues, having to pay for Billy's legal fees on top of dealing with their rival biker gang, the Angels of Death. As a way of making amends and some cash, Johnny ended up selling Billy's bike to the gang. Billy already knows all this, but demands that Johnny gets his bike back anyway, threatening the tumultuous peace they've created. The scene works well to establish just how selfish Billy is, as he's pretty ungrateful for what Johnny has done to keep their club together, along with shifting the blame for his own actions, quick to blame his brothers for being arrested in the first place, as opposed to his own screw-ups. This will be a continuing theme with him throughout the story. The Lost will first head to the mechanic they sold the bike to, who after some gentle prodding...
Wait! Please, please! No! 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 No!
Where is my bike?
Speak, you ugly
tells them the location of the Angels who have the bike. They'll confront the gang and after a brief shootout, get Billy his bike back. On the ride back to the clubhouse, we're introduced to a new mechanic exclusive to the DLC. When riding in a formation with the Lost, a badge with their emblem will appear in the center of the formation. Keeping up and following behind Billy, you'll engage in conversations with your brothers, while simultaneously being healed and having your bike repaired. It's a convenient little mechanic, as there are a lot of missions in the base game and later in Ballad of Gay Tony, where I forgot to heal before starting them. And the conversations are a decent distraction for these longer mandatory driving sections, but it only gets usage for the first half of the game. The clubhouse will serve as Johnny's main safe house in the game. Here he can arm wrestle with his brothers, play cards, and mourn the dead. That wall is going to fill up quite a bit before this story is done. Most missions with the Lost will require Johnny to be on a bike in order to drive around. So in case you lose his bike during gameplay, you can call Clay for a replacement. And if you need some firepower, Terry will hook you up like Lil Jacob did in the main game. The end of the mission will show a stat screen for the members of the Lost who took part in the gunfight. This is more or less GTA IV's take on San Andreas' gang mechanic. Any of your brothers who fight alongside you on missions, and survive, will become more hard.
What? Yeah, that's right. I'm so hard that people are scared of me, and they should be, because I'll explode all over them.
Oh, come on, what's the matter with you?
I'm
eating here. What? What are you talking about, your dick?
You know, tougher and more badass, increasing their health and unlocking better weapons. The game will encourage you to call backup whenever possible in order to even the odds, making the longer gunfights a lot more bearable. And thankfully, you don't have to worry about keeping them alive either, as outside of some plot-important NPCs, anybody who dies will just get replaced by another Lost member. Next mission has Johnny teaming up with the gang's treasurer, Jim. Jim is a longtime member like Johnny, is just as level-headed, and can see through Billy's bullshit too. He wants to steal bikes from the Angels of Death, having found a buyer who plans to sell them in Japan. Johnny isn't so sure at first, especially since they just got in a shootout with them, but can't argue that the club needs the money. They'll first grab a truck and start loading a few of their rivals' bikes onto it before they get noticed and engage them in a fight. Nothing too crazy, but unfortunately for the pair, cops were sitting on the Angels of Death, and witnessed the whole thing go down.
Oh, shit. Be cool, man.
Well, what do we have here? Looks to me like a couple of mopes with some stolen bikes.
While they won't arrest Johnny and Jim, they do shake them for a bribe, and now plan to keep an eye on their gang too. The Lost and the Damned sure lost that peace they had pretty quick. Already at odds with their rival gang, and now with the police breathing down their necks. Sure hope things don't get even worse. Meeting up with Jim again, he's a bit on edge about those cops, and suggests they get some brothers together to teach him a lesson. Johnny agrees, and the pair antagonize the two pigs, planning to lead them into an ambush. Things don't go quite as planned, as the cops call in a shitload of backup, turning the ambush into a full-on shootout. Something I like about this expansion compared to the main game is that usually an NPC will give you a weapon to use in case you didn't pick up anything before a mission. Here, Jim will give Johnny a brand new weapon that wasn't in the base game, the automatic pistol. It shoot real good, and is great for headshots. Their problems with the law are far from over, and realistically should be way worse considering the tons of cops they just killed. But instead of worrying about that, let's head back to the clubhouse.
Hey, Johnny Heyo.
Hey, Johnny, how you doing, baby? Hey!
Domestic violence. Hey, having fun over there? Absolutely.
Where we find Billy partying with the others. So much for staying sober. The two will get into an argument, and are about to go at each other when they're interrupted by the Angels of Death showing up at their door. The Angels aren't too keen that the Lost broke their truce, and while they back off from starting a fight, Billy quickly escalates things by shooting one of them in the back.
Screw you, you deadbeat prick!
Yeah, you can come to my party and get crushed!
He then orders the boys to give chase and gun the rest of them down. Again, Johnny is left frustrated, as his leader is quickly devolving the club into what he was trying to avoid. At the start of the next mission, Billy will be smoking weed with a middle-aged lawyer and prospect named Dave. Dave having absolutely no plot relevance whatsoever. Johnny will interrupt them, wanting to sit down and talk, with Billy looking like he's trying to make amends and square away the tension between the two of them. Before they can drink away their troubles and sing Kumbaya, though,
Kumbaya.
Billy gets a text finding out some of the Lost have been jumped by the Angels and need backup. You'll ride out with the gang again, engage in a huge amount of Angels in 2 separate locations. Once the dust is settled, Billy will rally everyone around him with some devastating news, as it seems Jason has bit the bullet. You know, this guy.
I'd love to, man, but I'm seeing this hot Russian broad over on Firefly Island. Gonna drink a daddy's expensive vodka and f*** her under the pier.
He's one of the gang's younger members, having a few lines here and there and helping out in a few missions before this point. But if you played the main game, you'll remember him as the biker who was dating Faustin's daughter, and who Nico ends up killing along with some Lost and Damned members. Billy gives a big speech promising they'll get revenge for their friend, but by the end of it, it's obvious he's just using Jason's death to emotionally manipulate his brothers and maintain their loyalty. Something Johnny easily sees through. Further emphasized by the following mission. It starts with Billy speaking to Ray Buccino about something. Ray being the Italian mob boss Nico previously worked for in the main game. After their business is done, Billy will rally the troops and lead them to the clubhouse of the Angels of Death. Johnny questions why they're there, with Billy claiming it's revenge for Jason, lying that the Angels of Death killed him, despite previously saying it was some Serbian hitman, aka Nico. This works to explain away why the Lost never went after him in the main game, and why Johnny wasn't suspicious of Nico when they teamed up. Here, Billy will give you a new weapon, the grenade launcher. You'll use it to fire into an open window on the second floor of the clubhouse, in order to lure the Angels out. Once most are taken care of, you'll go inside the clubhouse to clean out the remaining members, and find what Billy was actually after: heroin. Again, Johnny questions what he's up to, and argues that they should stay away from the drugs, as it'll bring even more heat on them. Billy ignores him, of course, giving a crappy metaphor about how bikes work to argue why stealing and selling the drugs would be to the entire gang's benefit instead. The following mission has Billy ordering Johnny to get the drugs sold, having him enlist the help of our old friend Elizabeta Torres. This is the same mission we did with Nico in the main story, now from Johnny's perspective. After the pair first meet and part ways, Johnny will pick up the heroin from Brian, before meeting up with Nico and Playboy X.
Hey, what's going on, guys? What's going on?
Not much. Let's do this.
You got the heroin, right? Right?
Come on, let's do this quickly.
But you got the heroin, correct? You're carrying it, correct? I mean, it's a simple question.
What's wrong with you? You're being weird.
Not weird, man. I just want to know if you're carrying the stuff, right?
You ain't right, friend.
No,
Come on, let's get out of here.
LCPD! Freeze, motherfucker! I said freeze!
Just like in the main game, the deal's a setup from the LCPD, with Johnny fighting his way below, while Nico and Playboy X take the roof. Things are tougher this time around, as Johnny going down the stairs makes it harder for him to find a good position to engage the noose agents without getting shot. Made worse as there are tons of cops waiting for him outside too. Hopefully you held onto the grenade launcher before starting this one. Sometime after making his getaway, Johnny will get a call from the FIB. They know about his botched deal, and try to pressure him to give some info up on the club, or face jail time. Johnny tells him off, but the agent says he'll remain in touch. Despite the deal going south, and the feds building a case against them, Billy is insistent they try to sell the heroin, sending Johnny to work with a local congressman while he tries to arrange a new drug deal. The congressman in question being Thomas Stubbs. If there's anything anyone remembers about this game, even those who never played it, it's this scene with Stubbs.
That'll do wonders for my campaign in all sorts of ways. Levis will give you a package on the way out.
Right.
Oh, and Klebitz, trust me, I am what I am. But I look out for those who help me.
It's kind of hilarious, actually. I remember it being discussed a lot online at the time, with clickbait articles talking about the game being the first GTA game with full frontal nudity. So I'm sure some gamers rushed to look up the scene expecting some polygon boobs, only to get a face full of dong instead. Stubbs is your typical blue blood, crooked politician, having gone through several scandals over mismanaging city funds. He wants to finance his re-election campaign, and asks Johnny to kill his rich uncle so he can inherit his fortune. Alrighty, sounds like a plan. Stubbs will supply you with an RPG for the mission, and needs you to get to the airport by a certain time to shoot down his uncle's chopper. Refreshingly, you can tackle the mission in a few ways. First is doing just as Stubbs asks, shooting down the chopper and then trying to escape the airport. The other is missing his uncle's arrival time, having to engage a convoy of cars in order to kill him. It's not much, and you're given a generous amount of time to make it to the airport, so you may not even know that it's an option to kill him outside of the airport, but at least the game isn't punishing you for trying to do something different during a mission. Once the job is done, you'll get a call from Johnny's ex-girlfriend, Ashley.
Ash?
Johnny boy. John, I need some help.
I ain't got a handout for you. Sorry.
A handout ain't gonna fix it, Johnny boy. I'm into something bad. I need a knight in shining armor to take me away from this mess. They're gonna kill me, or worse.
Jesus, Ash! Where are you?
Some project on Wardite. Come quick, baby.
I'll try.
She's been mentioned a few times before this point, but hadn't actually showed up until now. Ashley and Johnny used to date, being with him when he joined the Lost and the Damned. However, she became a drug addict, and slept with other members of the gang, specifically Billy, in exchange for more drugs. Something that asshole is all too willing to rub in Johnny's face. This caused Johnny to end things with her, but he still cares about her, and he maintains contact with this mess of a friend. Unfortunately, Ashley calling means he has to bail her out of yet another mess she's gotten herself into, this time being held hostage by drug dealers she didn't pay. Head to the building they're holed up in, kill the dealers, and get her home. After dropping her off, we'll get a call from Jim, and get introduced to a new side mission, Gang Wars. You initiate them by finding the corresponding icon on the map, but only if you're riding on a bike. Once you start it, you'll be given an objective of starting a fight with a rival gang. Either they'll be waiting in a set location, driving around until you can initiate a fight, or have to destroy a car they're escorting. You'll get help from several members of the Lost MC, who, as I brought up earlier, will get stronger and gain better weapons the more they participate in gang wars. You're not required to do them outside the first one, and thankfully, unlike GTA San Andreas, there isn't a mechanic where you have to protect your territory, but you do get incentives to do them, as you'll unlock new weapons at the clubhouse for every 10 gang wars you complete. I'd say the only real issue with them is how much they escalate with later wars. Your rivals taking a lot more damage, using better weapons, and constantly throwing explosives. So if you're not fully equipped, or find suitable cover, you're going to end up dying a lot. Returning to Congressman Stubbs, this time he needs some friends of his busted out of jail. Though you don't actually have to enter the prison, just get to their prison bus. Like the previous mission, it lets you tackle it in two different ways. One is just heading to the police station and fighting off tons of cops to steal the bus. The other is waiting for the bus to leave and ambushing it somewhere more remote. You'll still get a wanted level, but at least you're not fighting off the entire LCPD first. You'll even meet a very charming fellow who helps with the escape.
Whoa!
You're the best tasting thing I've had since I got locked up.
That's intense. All right.
Not so sure it's a good idea to leave that guy on the boat with Stubbs' friends, but whatever. When Johnny returns to the clubhouse, he finds Billy and Jim arguing about what to do with the heroin. Jim says that the drugs belong to the Triads, and that they know the Lost are currently in possession of it. He argues that maybe they should come to some deal with them and try to sell it back. Billy, on the other hand, isn't keen on the idea, not wanting to deal with the Triads at all, and still hoping to sell it himself to make the most profit. Ultimately, Johnny gets them to compromise, suggesting they try to make a deal with the Triads to get rid of the drugs and just get back some stability. They'll go make the deal, Johnny and Jim making the trade while Billy and Brian cover them.
Okay. We gonna be cool and do this thing?
So let me get this straight. You are here to sell us back our heroin. The heroin my cousin sweated over in order to bring to this country only to have it stolen.
Look, man, we can do business or go to war. It's your call.
In this country, they seem to be the same thing, you stupid pieces of shit!
Rather unsurprisingly, the Triads aren't too keen on being extorted for their own product, going back on the deal and immediately shooting at Johnny and Jim. Also unsurprisingly, Billy is nowhere to be seen, leaving his two brothers to fend for themselves. It's an intense shootout on the rooftops as the pair try to make it to the front of the building and back to their bikes. Once they escape the Triads, they'll see Billy, slightly hurt and being picked up by the cops, screaming that Johnny set him up. I wasn't sure what happened at first, but I think it might have just been karma biting Billy in the ass, as from the looks of it, he ended up crashing his bike while trying to escape. Him screaming and blaming Johnny seems par for the course, obviously not willing to accept his own f*** up. But it may have also been so Brian could hear him, who ends up calling Johnny a few minutes later, and quickly blaming him for what happened to Billy. I haven't talked about Brian at all, but he's the secretary of the Lost MC, and basically Billy's little toady. He's always seen in cutscenes with him, sucking up to him, kissing his ass, and blindly agreeing with anything he has to say. Brian will spend the entire ride back to the clubhouse dogging on Johnny and pointing the finger at him as a sellout, inevitably creating a rift in the club, especially now that Johnny once again has to assume the role of club president. Before we decide what to do with that little shit though, we got a few things to take care of. First, remember Dave? That random lawyer who was hanging out with Billy and we haven't seen since? Well, he's in a bit of a bind and could use some help. And unlike the majority of missions in this game, Dave is actually a random encounter. I brought this up in the previous video, but as you're exploring Liberty City, you'll occasionally run into random people who will need help. In the base game, they slowly unlock over time, don't appear on your map, and only appear on your minimap when you're at the right place at the right time. And in certain circumstances, would only show up if you spared the person during a main story mission. Here though, they do actually show up the map once unlocked, which loses a bit of the fun of exploring the city to find them. But because of the DLC's shorter runtime, and the fact most missions take place in Alderney, I'm guessing the devs made them easier to spot just so players didn't end up missing them. Dave is being sued by his secretary for supposed sexual harassment, claiming he stared at her chest and suppressed her. He's worried the blowback will kill his career and his marriage. Whoa, Dave's getting Me Too'd before it was even a thing. Johnny isn't too sympathetic, but jumps on board when Dave just wants him to intimidate her lawyer, which he does by following him around and smashing up his ride till he agrees to drop the case. Afterwards, Johnny will visit Jim, meeting his friends Malk and Deshawn. They're younger bikers who prefer crotch rockets to American choppers. They sell the older bikers pipe bombs to blow up drug vans belonging to the Angels of Death. Next, we'll return to the oh-so-lovely Elizabetha. She asks Johnny and Malk to take care of some dealers who've been moving some product under her nose. You'll head over to the toll bridge and wait to ambush them, receiving a new weapon, the assault shotgun. And I absolutely love this thing. It does tons of damage, fires off shots like crazy, and just sounds so good when firing. It's one of, if not the most powerful weapon in the game, trivializing a lot of shootouts. So if you got the cash to spare, definitely keep it topped off with ammo.
Here comes Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. Billy was always good to you and you ratted him out.
Billy's a one-way SOB and he don't give a shit about the brothers.
No,
Yeah, you think Billy'd stick his neck out for you? You're dumber than I thought.
Returning to the Lost, Brian is still causing trouble, convinced Johnny plotted Billy's downfall. It's a full-on civil war now, as the little shit has managed to rally a good chunk of the NC to join him, and trying to kill Johnny and some of the older brothers who sided with him. After the shootout between both sides, Brian manages to get away, and the Alderney chapter is whittled down to just Johnny, Jim, and a handful of guys. Man, everything about the MC turning on itself feels off and a little abrupt. Mainly because Brian, of all people, somehow managed to convince part of the club to side with him. The little toady who usually gets put in his place by other members, Billy included, who gets no respect and barely interacts with anyone else in the club. While I brought up the fact that Billy was manipulating his brothers, outside of Brian, you don't really see anyone else buying his bullshit. Especially since the older members are quick to call Billy out and very loudly don't like that dumb shit he's been doing. My guess is that Brian convinced the prospects and newer members of the gang that might be hungry to move up in the ranks. But because of this being a shorter DLC, most likely the devs couldn't flesh this out properly. You don't have to spend too much time searching for Brian at least, as Ray Buccino will come forward with his location. He's not all that interested in the club's infighting, but wants it settled so the gang could go back to working for him without issue. Reaching Brian's location, you have two options on how to take him down. First is going inside his safe house, taking out his buddies, and then being given the choice to execute him or not. If you spare him, he'll run off, but you'll end up killing him later in a random encounter. The other method has you shooting a grenade into an open window of his safe house. This causes everyone to come rushing out the back door, making them easy pickings, especially if you called Terry and Clay for backup. Brian will come rushing out on his bike, but if you're fast enough, you can kill him without having to bother chasing him. With that little shithead 6 feet under, you end up taking control of his place as an extra safe house. With the Lost in the Dam's little civil war ended as fast as it began, it's back to business as usual. Once again being hit up by Elizabetha. She needs Johnny to pick up a girl named Marta from the airport, who's working as a drug mule for her. Like every mission for Elizabetha, things go south. with Johnny arriving at the airport to find some Fed harassing Martha, and planning to arrest and sexually assault her. Johnny will have to fight through an army of Feds before escaping on bike with Martha.
Me no habla mucho Spanish, lady.
Necesita una ducha después de esta bienvenida tan perra. Uf.
Returning to Elizabetha one more time, she again needs help with a drug deal, asking Johnny and Malk to sell to some local buyers. While watching this cutscene, I noticed something. Despite not knowing each other for long and her speaking no English, there seems like a small spark growing between Martha and Johnny, as Johnny was more concerned for Martha as a person during the chase than for actually getting the job done. She'll offer him some food to eat when he comes back, and when Elizabetha tells Johnny about the cops closing in on her, he asks if Martha needs any help, offering to hide her till the heat dies down, though Elizabetha declines. It's small, and sadly this is the last time we see Martha in the game, but I think it would have been interesting to see a relationship between the two. During the actual job for Elizabetha, you can more or less guess what happens.
Yeah, motherfucker!
Oh, you fucked up now, bitch! Holy shit!
Cue an unbelievably long police chase that I died several times on. You're stuck riding bitch on Malk's bike, having to shoot down the cops or choppers following them. While you can reasonably take out anyone chasing you with a few shots of the assault shotgun, you're completely exposed on the back of the bike. You're constantly being shot at while on the run. So unless you started the mission with full health and body armor, you can't afford to leave anyone chasing you alive for too long, or you'll end up getting gunned down halfway through the chase. Once you finally manage to get away, Elizabetha says her goodbyes as she prepares for the cops swooping in. Like I brought up in the original video, I honestly don't understand how someone as incompetent as Elizabetha ever rose to power. Even here in the DLC, every single mission for her ends up going badly. Johnny's got other problems though, as he'll get a call from Ashley. She's once again got herself into some trouble with drug dealers. Unfortunately, said men are much more dangerous than before, working for our old friend Dmitry Raskolov. They threaten to kill Ashley unless Johnny does a job for them. They order him to kidnap Roman, Nico's cousin, telling Johnny to pick him up from the local gambling den. So if you're wondering how Roman got kidnapped when he first disappeared during the original game, turns out Johnny was behind it. Though not by choice. He'll pick up Malk on the way for help, and the pair end up jumping Roman. It's a fairly simple mission, with Roman trying to escape at one point, needing you to scare him and lead him back to the car. Just be careful not to kill him. You'll drop him off at an industrial warehouse in Bohan, the same one that Nico would end up going to in order to save Roman during the main campaign. While Johnny managed to get the Russians off Ashley's back, his troubles are far from over. The Fed that had contacted him earlier in the game reaches out, telling Johnny that the MC is done for, as one of them has agreed to snitch and take the stand against them. With Brian dead by this point, it shouldn't be hard to piece together who the likely traitor is. And despite just dealing with Ashley's bullshit, she once again drags Johnny into helping her. Well, helping her new friend Ray Buccino, actually. It's kinda weird that Ray would even need to use Ashley to get Johnny working for him, as Ray was already doing deals with Billy before he went inside, and he approached the gang with Brian's location in order to squash their little civil war, and to get them back to working for him. Feels like it might be a holdover from early development, and to maintain continuity as Ashley showed up for one mission in the main game when Nico works for Ray. Ray's gotten word on some illegal diamonds that are being moved, asking Johnny to ambush the deal and steal them from Gay Tony. Johnny will call up Jim and his brothers for backup, and the group hits the docks as the deal takes place. Gay Tony, his boyfriend Evan, and Tony's enforcer/partner, Luis Lopez, are buying the diamonds off a boat cook. I neglected to bring this up during my first video, but there was a small mystery over the origins and owner of the diamonds during the game, with several people claiming ownership over them, with Bulgarin, Nico's old boss, claiming that he had them smuggled into the country. And it turns out he wasn't lying, as if you watch the opening cutscene of the game, you'll see this same cook hiding some diamonds in some soup. Gay Tony buys the diamonds off the cook, and soon after the Lost ambush the deal, with Luis leaving with Tony, while Evan runs with the diamonds. Chase down his limo, take the diamonds off him, and leave them at the drop-off location that Ray has Nico go to during his campaign. The next mission for Ray has you doing the Libertonium Museum job, the one that Nico and Johnny teamed up on. Like last time, Luis will interrupt the deal, and while we don't exactly know how he found out about it, Since the deals were stolen from him and his boss, it makes more sense why he was here in the first place. Johnny will grab the case full of cash from the Jewish mob, and like Nico, have to fight his way out of the Libertonian, made tougher as Ray's goons are waiting for him outside to retrieve the money. This ends up being a bit of a stupid move by Johnny, and even hypocritical considering how much he criticized Billy for his actions. Before heading to the museum, Ray makes it clear that the money they receive for the job will be split between them equally. But Johnny just decides to keep the cash for himself, something that Nico tells Ray about during his campaign. Ray will call up Johnny at the end of the mission, interrogating him about the money. Johnny trying to play innocent even though Ray knows he's lying. This decision ends up biting Johnny in the ass badly, as soon after, he'll get a text from Jim telling him to meet him at Ray's restaurant.
Well, look who it is.
Hey, how you doing, tough guy? What's your problem?
I told you not to get too f***ing clever.
What? Oh, you gotta be kidding.
Start walking.
Turns out it was a trap. Ray having sent the text himself, pulling a gun on Johnny as he interrogates him about where his money is. He leads both downstairs, where one of Ray's goons is currently torturing Jim with a blowtorch.
Burn him again! Where's my f***ing stuff?
Oof, that looks rough. This scene is tense as no one is willing to talk, the two at Ray's mercy before Jim manages to cut himself free, flipping the situation as he takes Ray's goons hostage. Finally getting the gun away from Ray, Jim kills the goon as the pair run for their lives.
I'll see you later!
Johnny will head for Ashley's, but he's not out of the fire yet, as Ashley will call before he arrives, letting him know a squad of hitmen are waiting for Johnny. You'll have a choice in how to deal with the hitmen, either taking them on solo, or calling up Clay and Terry for backup, who will arrange an ambush, needing you to lead the hitmen to their location, and taking them out together. After surviving, you'll meet up with Ashley outside the clubhouse. She fills Johnny in that unfortunately Jim ended up getting killed by Ray's men. Specifically, he was killed by Nico, during a mission in the main game where you chase two bikers through the subway tunnels. Though Jim has a generic NPC model during that mission. Things get even worse when Ashley reveals that Billy is the one who plans to snitch to the feds. No surprises there. With everything circling the drain, Johnny decides to cut Ashley loose as well. Fed up with her antics, but possibly wanting to protect her from the wrath the feds are about to rain down on him and the club. Johnny is ready to accept his fate, but gets a call from Congressman Stubbs, who tells him to meet him back at the clubhouse.
Nice place you got here, Johnny. Not quite sure I meet the dress code, but I think I like the smoking policy.
What the f do you want?
Now, is that any way to treat a friend?
Are we friends?
I think so. You've certainly seen me naked.
First, he assures him not to worry about Ray Buccino, as he's busy dealing with all the dysfunction the Mafia family is going through. This is in reference to all the shit that went down with Jimmy Pegorino during the main story, which involves Nico killing Ray at some point. Next, he tells him that Billy is planning to pin a drug ring on Johnny and Angus, in exchange for witness protection from the feds. Angus being an older member of the club you'll see in a wheelchair in cutscenes, and who will give you missions to steal bikes during the game, but doesn't have a real active role in the plot. Stubbs tells Johnny to get to Billy before he's put into witness protection. And here we are, the final mission of the game. With nothing left to lose, Johnny calls up the remaining members of the gang and tells them to meet him outside the prison. Before storming the place, you can get fully decked out from Terry, who won't charge you for anything you buy. And trust me, you're going to need it, so definitely get some armor and max out ammo for every weapon you're carrying. Approach the prison gates to blow them up and storm the facility.
I'm about to introduce a pipe bomb to that gate. I hope you're all ready.
Johnny K! You gonna wait?
It won't be easy, as you'll be under tons of fire from prison guards, who'll be rocking assault rifles and body armor. Once you've made it to the center of the prison, you'll find Billy on his own. He won't fight back, and you'll have the option to execute him if you bring a pistol. Billy makes no excuses or apologies, just standing there and waiting for Johnny to kill him. Johnny will hesitate though, but eventually pulls the trigger when Billy forces his hand by pulling a knife on him.
Checkmate, dude.
come on. Get it over with.
Do it!
I'm doing it! What? You waiting for a speech or something?
Come on!
It's hard to say what's going through Billy's mind at this point, since he knows the club knows he's a snitch, and since Johnny managed to fight through a high-security prison to get to him, it's likely he saw death as the only way out. Might be why he taunts Johnny to kill him, and basically forces him to do it by coming at him with a knife. Though considering Billy's selfishness and constant blaming of others for his own actions, it may have been a twisted way to blame Johnny for his own death, as opposed to accepting his actions. Johnny will leave the prison with his brothers, and they return to the clubhouse to find it a mess. They'll reminisce about the good old days, wondering where things went wrong before deciding to set the place on fire, and disbanding their chapter of the Lost and the Damned.
Go ahead. Let's put this place out of its misery.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
Come on, man, let's get out of here.
After the credits roll, you'll respawn at Billy's safe house. Since obviously the club is gone now, you can call a few people in the postgame to see where everyone is. If you call Stubbs, Johnny will tell him that he killed Billy, with Stubbs congratulating him for getting the job done and offering him a job as a bodyguard, though Johnny declines. Call Ashley to see that she hasn't changed one bit from this whole ordeal, as she asks Johnny for $40 for drugs. He tells her off, telling Ashley to get killed without his help, finally cutting her out of his life. And finally, we'll call Angus. The two again reminiscing about the good old times before Johnny promises to send some money to Jim's wife and kid. His way of making amends for everything that happened. And with that, the story of the Lost and the Damned comes to an end. So what did I think? Well, I liked it quite a lot. It's got a lot packed into it for an 8 to 10 hour experience. The story is a lot quicker paced, gets you into the action faster than the main game, and fixes some of the issues with missions by making them less scripted, and adding some variety to them. This is why I was able to actually talk about most of the individual missions, as opposed to casually glancing over them like I did in my first video. It added more weapons to the game, ones that just felt a lot more fun to use as opposed to the main game. It also helped that you could use a decent amount of them while you're on your bike. I like the new mechanics like getting healed while driving with your club, or calling in backup for missions. Though I think the game was a little too heavy-handed in asking you to use backup, as you'll get a text from Jim at the beginning of just about every mission to call Clay and Terry. And since calling up backup can alter how a mission goes, I think that would have been something more fun a player could discover on their own. Johnny is a solid protagonist, just a man who's nostalgic for the days when being in a biker club meant being part of a brotherhood, as opposed to just being outlaws. I know it's limited due to being an expansion and not a full game, but it would have been interesting to see how Johnny managed the MC when Billy was in rehab. Show the player how much better things were going before Billy's toxic influence returned. And while I like most of them, the majority of characters don't get fleshed out, outside of Johnny and maybe Billy. Angus, Clay, and Terry, who despite showing up a lot during the game, don't really contribute much to the plot. You never really get a good understanding about who they are, and what's going through their heads when the club starts breaking down. Ones like Marta feel like they had something in mind, but the devs didn't have the time to go anywhere with it. Again, a limitation of being just an expansion. Honestly, that really feels like my only problem with it, that it just wasn't longer. Sure, some of the issues from the main game carry over, like the cover mechanics and the awkward driving, but it freshened up the GTA IV experience, offering lighter moments, more mission variety that weren't all strictly linear, and even a decent villain in Billy. You feel and see the tension between him and Johnny from the moment he's introduced, and watch as it boils over time, and you just know the two of them are going to come to blows sooner or later. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with The Lost and the Damned. I'm not so sure I'd rank it over the base game, but it comes pretty damn close. The whole experience made me wish that we got some kind of prequel game set in the 60s, when The Lost and the Damned first formed. How cool would it have been to have a GTA game set during that time period, fully dedicated to the biker lifestyle? And it's definitely a market that could use filling, as the only other game I can think of about bikers that isn't strictly a racing game is Ride to Hell Retribution. Ugh, don't think I'll be playing that anytime soon. I think the DLC had the right framework for something more. It's just too bad Rockstar never capitalized on it. Doubly so considering what they did with Johnny after this game. But I'll talk about that if I ever make a video about GTA V. Lost in the Dam was an enjoyable side story, one that really had the potential to be something more. It showed that GTA IV wasn't this overly serious and bland story like some people think it is. A DLC story that feels underappreciated, but deserves your attention.
Get the money! Me and my brother will watch the kids!
Diablo, qué mierda.
And here we are, the final part of my GTA IV retrospective. Like The Lost and Damned, I walked into playing this DLC mostly blind, as I'd only ever played it once, and only really remembered vague things about the expansion's story. But little did I know, this would end up being my favorite part of the entire GTA IV experience. Like the last two videos, I'll be going through my recent playthrough, critiquing and discussing how I feel about its design, story, and characters. So let's get into it. The Ballad of Gay Tony follows Luis Lopez, the bodyguard, driver, and sort of business partner of Tony Prince, the titular Gay Tony. Luis previously showed up during the main campaign, first as a bystander during the bank heist mission, showing up to steal the diamonds during the Libertonian mission, and again meeting up with Nico and Packy McCreary to exchange said diamonds for Gracie Ancelotti. Also during the Lost and Damned DLC, he would show up when he, Gay Tony, and Tony's boyfriend Evan bought the diamonds from a ship cook, before they were ambushed by Johnny and the Lost. Luis is the youngest of the three protagonists, being the most level-headed, down-to-earth, and most in control of his emotions, though he can get just as angry as the other two when pushed far enough. He's also the only one of the three who left his criminal past behind.
Oh, rest of you motherfuckers want to die? Do something stupid, okay?
Well, sorta, as he was a drug dealer during his younger years, leaving the life when Gay Tony offered him a job as his bodyguard. This helped him move out of his old neighborhood for a better and more glamorous life, something his old friends and family resent him for, treating him like he's now an out-of-touch yuppie. Though it isn't all fancy clothes, expensive dining, and fast cars for Luis, as unfortunately Gay Tony is a terrible business owner, as a combination of the bad economy, his lavish lifestyle, his drug habit, and just some really bad deals he's made, has left him in a lot of debt, and now making deals with some less than savory types. This frustrates Luis to no end, as he's basically doing Tony's job for him by running the clubs, along with being forced to do favors for those same people his boss owes money to. Despite those frustrations though, Luis does his best to help his boss, who does feel guilty about the stress he puts on his partner, and does value all Luis does for him. This dynamic has the two form a rather odd father and son relationship. This DLC starts us during the bank heist from the original game, with Luis giving a statement to the police after Nico and his group leave. He'll then call up his boss to let him know what happened while making his way to Gay Tony's apartment. Once he arrives, Gay Tony will vent to him about his issues, pretty much going over everything I just previously mentioned about him. Soon the pair have company, joined by Rocco Pelosi and his uncle Vince.
Hey, Tony! The door was open. Man, it's easier to get into your apartment than into your nightclub.
Yeah, we have a no guido policy at the club. Here I ain't so sure.
Oh, I love getting racially abused by a...
Yeah, who's a fucking taco, Tony?
My business partner, Luis. Gentlemen, watch your language. We're in the great melting pot.
The two of them members of the Ancelotti crime family. They're here to pick up a payment from Gay Tony. Rocco wastes no time in starting shit with Luis, and it's pretty much every shitty stereotype about Guidos rolled into one. And kind of sounds like Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Hey, man, he is kind of cute. Tonight, you. What do you think he means? Tonight, you. Like he's threatening me or something.
See you later. Oh, nice to meet you, Muscles. There goes payroll.
Can't wait to inevitably kill that guy. Luis is less than pleased by the situation, especially since he just risked his life taking out cash for his boss. Gay Tony brushes it off and tells him not to worry about it, as the two leave to check in on his businesses. They'll briefly stop by the gay nightclub Hercules first, before setting in at Masonette 9. At the club, you can take shots, get into drinking games, or hit the dance floor to show off your moves and potentially pick up some ladies. You know, despite it being very simple at its core, the dancing minigame really threw me for a loop at first. I thought it was going to be the usual just press the right button at the right time like other dancing minigames. Instead, you just move one of the analog sticks in time with the rhythm of the song, and hold it when it tells you to. But since I'm rhythmically challenged, my dumbass couldn't really wrap my head around that at first. So I just kind of did nothing or moved it at random times instead. Eventually I figured out that you just had to move the stick after every beat, but I really gotta wonder what it says about me that I'm thrown out by such a simple concept. Subscribe to my channel to see me engage in even more dumbassery. The dancing minigame isn't mandatory outside of one mission later, but if you succeed, you'll hook up with the girl you're dancing with and get her number for future booty calls. Booty calls don't really do anything outside of getting an achievement and healing Luis to full health, but it's a fun little distraction in between missions. After having some fun, Luis will hear a commotion at the entrance of the club, finding his friends Armando and Enrique hassling the bouncer.
You ain't coming in. Not in them clothes. Not with that attitude.
Enjoy looking for a job in this economic climate, motherfucker. Yeah.
Yo, what the f***, eh?
Tell this clipboard and earpiece, motherfucker. Back up, Al.
Back up!
The three of them grew up together on the same block, all rolling in the same gang slinging drugs before Luis went to jail. While he's trying to live an honest life now, his friends are still in the dope game. Their lack of skill set, and in Enrique's case, intelligence, makes it impossible for them to hold down a real job. Luis still encourages his friends to find something else despite that, but they instead decide they can become bigger in the drug game through Luis's help. After dropping them off, you can head back to Luis's apartment to end the mission and be introduced to the brand new scoring system. And I'm not really a fan of it at all. Anytime you complete a mission, you'll be given a score on how well you did during that mission, tallying up your completion time along with how many optional objectives you've completed. The problem is, unless you have a guide open, you have no idea what those objectives are until after you've beaten the mission. But you can't repeat the mission right away either, and have to wait till you've beaten the DLC to do so. It feels like such an unnecessary decision, stripping away player freedom and forcing them to play the mission a certain way or rush through it in order to get the best score. And there's no reward for getting 100% outside of an achievement. Just feels like an artificial way to extend the game's replayability. They'd end up bringing the mechanic back for GTA V too, though tweaked slightly to give medals as opposed to a numerical score. And if I remember correctly, making it so you can replay missions after completing them, as opposed to waiting to beat the game there. And yeah, I know I'm not being held hostage and can just choose to ignore it and play the game that I want to play it, but it can still feel like a punch in the nuts to barely survive through a tough mission, or fail it several times, only to see a shitty score stare you in the face when you finally complete it.
Oh, where the f*** have you been, man?
Yeah, I came as soon as I could.
I don't pay for as soon as I could.
In the morning, we return to Tony's apartment, who's stressed out now as the full realization for all his f***ups have finally hit him. Outside of his drug habit, his boyfriend's expensive tastes, and the bad economy, he's somehow made his business dealings even worse. Having sold the business to two separate groups, already spending most of their cash, and just waiting for both of them to find out and presumably kill him. Luis doesn't sweat it too much, trying to calm his boss down, reminding them that they've been in shit before, and together manage to find a way out. Gay Tony appreciates his optimism, but explains that they'll have to play nice and cozy up to the people they're in debt to, which means working for them, and having to deal with that prick Rocco again. We'll find him at the golf course, still as charming as ever.
Oh, Tony. Shit. You got burrito breath. You ain't been eating Mexican again, have you?
He's putting the squeeze on a union boss to find out what other families are running his operation, and he asks for some assistance. And rather creatively, instead of doing the usual find and shoot the guy kind of mission, we're playing golf. Rocco has the guy strapped to a golf cart, and you'll have to aim your golf swings in order to hit him with the ball.
There you go!
Once you've got the information Rocco needs, the union boss's protection shows up, engaging in a shootout.
Oh, we were just having a discussion.
After which you'll need to escape by golf cart.
Come on, put some distance behind us.
Yo, Rocco, you piece of shit. What you got us into?
Shut up, Lou! We didn't mean anything by it.
Despite all the shit they just went through, the pair are far from paying off Gay Tony's debt, and Rocco assures them he'll remain in touch. I think it's time to go home and check on my mama.
Mami, soy yo.
Ay, Luis. Hey, hijo, ¿quieres un cafecito?
Sí, un ching.
Un ching. Luis, this is Mr. Santos.
What's going on?
Hey, I guess I didn't recognize you from your mom not having any pictures of you up on the walls.
Yeah, I guess she doesn't have any up.
Now you mention it. I guess mugshots don't sit along too well with graduation shots.
Hey, who the f*** are you?
Things aren't great, as Luis's mother has gotten herself into debt with this shady loan shark, Santo. He and Luis take an instant dislike to each other, and Luis is just about to take care of him then and there, before Santo threatens to burn down his mother's building. He offers a deal to cover her debt, walking Luis to an underground cage-fighting arena. Apparently, Luis used to fight here back in the day, and had quite the reputation as a brawler. Santo wants Luis to fight again, having him fight 3 opponents, but taking a dive on the last guy. This setup for the mission is certainly cool, but the game's melee mechanics don't lend themselves well for this. There isn't enough move variety, and melee is just too slow and clunky for it to feel rewarding. This can also make it hard to survive the last fight, as you keep any damage you take between rounds. Do as Santo says and take a dive, and he'll forgive your mother's debt. Though she's pretty ungrateful about it when she calls you later.
I took a dive in that fight for you, Mommy. You don't know that guy any more money.
What do you mean you took a dive? Do you mean you lost? You claim to be some big shot, and you can't even win a fight for your mama?
I lost a fight for you, Mommy.
I didn't ask you to lose no fight. I did not ask for losers in my family.
You know what? Forget about it, Ma. Just don't go borrowing any more money. See you soon.
Despite not caring much for this mission, I do like the hidden alternative way to finish it. Even though Santo in the game makes it clear you have to lose, you can actually choose to win instead. You won't fail the mission and instead piss off Santo, who pulls a gun on Luis, giving you the option to kill this fool to clear his mom's debt. Too bad she's still ungrateful and will still scold Luis for what he did. Despite the fact that this whole mess is her fault in the first place.
My boy, what have you been doing?
I've been taking care of things for you, Ma. That guy ain't coming around no more. Don't worry about it.
What kind of attitude is that to give your mama? Do you think you're something special? Like some baseball player? Like some gangster?
Mommy, I didn't imply anything like that.
You organize parties, Luis. You're a bouncer? Don't act the big shot with me because I know who you are.
Mommy, you don't know me. The most important people in the world come to our clubs, and I look after them. I am something, and I look after you. I'll see you soon, okay? Bye.
Wow, an unpleasable mom who constantly criticizes you and nothing is ever good enough for her? Hitting a little too close to home here, Rockstar. Regardless of how you beat the mission, you'll unlock cage fighting as an optional side mission to make cash, either by betting on fights or competing. Heading back up the block, Luis will bump into Armando and Enrique doing a drug deal. The 3 of them will catch up and talk shit, briefly talking to Luis's mom before they leave to meet a potential drug partner. I really like the dynamic between Luis and his old friends, the way they shoot barbs at each other, try to clown the other. And Luis's general want of a better life for his buddies all feels real and genuine.
You want a job, bro? I'll get you a job, man. You know that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I want a job sucking some aging playboy's cock. I want that job real bad. Sign me the up.
You're such a dick, bro.
You would know.
The trio will eventually reach the docks to meet with their connection. And despite this not being an Elizabeth Torres mission, their drug deal goes south. As the cops were listening in on the phone conversations Armando had with his supplier, and followed them. Time to take out Liberty City's finest and make our getaway, with Armando giving us a new weapon, the assault shotgun. Once they're in the clear, they flee the scene and head back to Northwood, Luis giving his friends advice on how to succeed in the drug business. This will unlock Drug Wars, which serves a similar function that Gang Wars did in the last DLC. During Drug Wars, you'll team up with Armando and Enrique to rip off rival gangs for their supply, either by stealing their drug van, ambushing a convoy protecting said drug van, or ambushing a deal in progress and killing everyone until the bag of drugs spawn. And just like Gang Wars, you'll unlock a weapon at Luis's safe house for every 10 missions you complete. I like Drug Wars more in comparison to Gang Wars. They tend to be a lot simpler and go by much quicker, though they can still be difficult. That, and I just love the banter between Luis and his friends.
You know, for a fool with a gay boss, you can help. I say the same thing to Enrique. What do you mean by that? Nothing, bro. Nothing at all.
Next job has Luis picking up Gay Tony, the pair once again having to do a job for Rocco. They'll head to Chinatown to meet with the Triads, and we get a scene with Billy Gray talking to their leader before the two show up. As it turns out, Billy made a deal with the Triads to give them their drugs back in exchange for them killing Johnny in the last DLC. I'm not sure if this scene was really warranted, to be honest, as everything about that mission when playing it made it obvious Billy was setting Johnny up. Hell, the idea of selling the drugs back to the Triads sounded like a bad idea from the get-go. And it made perfect sense that they'd try to kill Johnny and Jim as opposed to making a deal. Guess the devs didn't want to leave it too ambiguous and wanted to paint Billy as an even bigger asshole than he already was.
Boo. Hey, watch it, you greaseball.
I apologize for our associate's uncouth manner.
Luis and Gay Tony's dealings with the Triads don't go much better, as Rocco oversold what the two are capable of. Specifically, he promised the Triads these two would get them a liquor license, and ease some problems with the planning department. Once Luis explains, rather sternly, that no, they can't do that, shit hits the fan. The pair will now have to shoot their way through dozens of Triads, Luis making use of a new weapon, the Assault SMG. It shoots real good. Thankfully, it's not an escort mission, as you don't have to worry about Tony getting killed. Damn, that was some rough shit. I think I'm gonna go visit my mama again.
Que rico, Mrs. L.
Thank you, Mrs. L. Mami, it's me.
Ah, hello, baby.
Hola, mami, ¿cómo está? Hi.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, man?
Ay, Dios mío, mami, pero ¿qué es esto? You always taking care of the down and outs.
Hey.
Dropping in on her, she's in a cheery mood, and feeding our two idiot friends. It's a quick gathering before Luis scoops them up for a job they want to do. Also, another less than wholesome moment between Luis and his mom.
Go to school. Go somewhere. It's not too late, my baby.
Mami, but you got it all wrong. I mean, it's not like that anymore. You know, I know good people, I know bad people, you know, but I know the difference. I mean, I know I made mistakes, but things are better now. I mean, how many times we gotta go over this?
If things are better now, then why are you always like this?
Right, but you take the money, right? You take the money every time.
Get out of my house. What choice do I have? I lost my job.
Yeah, well, call one of the other kids, the one you ain't ashamed of.
Really, it's just there to spell out that Luis is the unfavorite in his family. But his mom still takes the help he offers because he's the only one taking care of her and looking out for her. Normally, I wouldn't read too deep into this stuff during missions, but I can't really help but sympathize with Luis. I think a lot of people can relate to trying to move on and do better after your own personal f***ups. Taking pride in your new accomplishments, only for others to treat you like you've never changed, and that you're not good enough unless you do things their way. And yes, I realize Luis is still technically a criminal, but his mom doesn't know everything he's up to. Only the company he keeps. said company who she treats better than her own son. And she still takes his money when he offers it, despite what she says. Anyways, this mission is to help these two dummies protect their drug shipment from the other rival gangs. Whoa, growing their drug empire needs them stealing drugs. And here they are, having to defend their own drugs from being stolen.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Now's the time I end up dealing with the other person who has a stake in Gay Tony's businesses.
Hey, Lou!
It's Luis.
Yeah, whatever. Come here, give me some love right here. You know, I'm guessing, just from looking at you, you ain't exactly packing a 10-inch hose, man. Me? I make girls wince. Wince.
Just to level with you for a minute, bro. Tony owes you money. Tony's my boss and my friend. So I'll help you out a little. But if you mention my host again, I'll put you in the f***ing ground.
Maury Kibitz. And if that last name sounds familiar, well, it shouldn't, because I never mentioned it in the last two videos. But Maury is our old friend Brucey's older brother, and much, much more annoying. Take everything that made Brucey obnoxious in the base game, his overconfidence, his bullshit lifestyle, his steroid abuse, and turn it up to 11 and throw in a height complex for good measure, along with a midlife crisis of his spray tan and bleached hair or anything to go by. After his annoying introduction, and having to watch Maury bully his younger brother.
Jesus, who is training you? Man ought to be horsewhipped. Look at you. You're lumpy. You're like awful, like a big pale mess. And you're fat, bro. You're fat.
We'll head to the docks to help him with a drug deal. Predictably, it goes bad, as Maury has scammed these dealers in the past and aren't looking to do a deal with him again. You know, with every drug-related mission across every part of GTA IV going bad, I can't help but think that Rockstar had a subtle anti-drug message thrown into this game. Please ignore the fact there's a whole series of missions, literally labeled Drug Wars, that you can complete after successfully stealing and stashing drugs. Because if you don't, my theory is wrong, and that makes me sad. Anyways, kill the dealers, escape on speedboat, and make use of the new weapon, the sticky bomb, to blow up any remaining dealers. After having to deal with Napoleon's obnoxiousness, I think it's time to hit the club again.
Hey, Steve! How are you, mate? It's so good to see you!
Yeah, it's Luis. How are you, Daisy? You never call me.
Sorry, Leslie. Yeah, I'm great, marvelous. Listen, have you got any coke?
No, I'm sorry.
Not to worry, I don't need it. I more or less stopped doing it now. I only do it at night now.
Here, Luis will bump into an old hookup of his, and sort of friend, Daisy. She's a debutante from London with a drug habit, and possibly jonesing as she's all over the place when Luis first starts talking to her. He's soon roped into helping her out, as some gay action star she gave a handjob to wants to leak the video of it in order to prove he's straight. Probably the weirdest setup for a mission in this series, but whatever, I'm in. It's pretty simple, and really it's just driving around, trying to figure out his location based off of his tweets, ending when he puts the video up in the middle of Liberty City. It's nothing particularly special, but as a random encounter mission, it's pretty fun, and Luis's interactions with Daisy are pretty hilarious. Next, let's check in on our dear old boss. Luis doesn't find him, but instead his obnoxious boyfriend, Evan. And I'll let Luis explain the type of person Evan is.
Ay, Dios mío. Evan, look. I always thought that even for a coke push and steroid junkie, you were a particular asshole. Okay, I'm just gonna admit that. Now, would you shut the f up before I shut you up? Now, where's Tony?
He's in the bedroom.
Well said, Luis. We eventually find Gay Tony passed out on the floor, severely pilled up. After sobering him up with some impromptu waterboarding, we find out he's a wreck again, as Rocco is threatening to burn down the nightclubs for the insurance money, unless we help him with his union issues again. Things have escalated pretty heavily, as he basically wants us to commit domestic terrorism by blowing up some spots with timed explosives. Well, technically Gay Tony was going to do it all on his own, but after some reflection and tough love from Luis, he takes it upon himself to do the job so his boss doesn't accidentally blow himself up. We also show Evan some love before leaving.
Off, Evan. You gave him the pills. Be gone before I get back.
Our targets are a crane, a subway car, and some guy on a private jet. Once we escape the cops, it's time to meet my favorite character of the DLC, my man, Yusuf Amir.
Hey, man. Hey, nigga. What's up? What's up? So glad you could make it, man. Seriously. F***ing A. Yo, for real, man. Yep.
You okay, bro?
No, I'm fine, man. I got a couple of bitches upstairs. Hot ones, not cheap.
Nice.
He was briefly mentioned by Playboy X way back during the main story, but this is his first official appearance. Yusuf is everything Roman wishes he was. He sleeps with beautiful women, hits up nightclubs every night, runs a billion-dollar business, and dips everything he owns in gold like he's Gold member.
I love gold!
Though he does abuse his N-word privileges a little too much.
Think you want to moderate your use of the word, bro? It's not cool, all right?
He dreams of owning most of Liberty City, planning to build tons of luxury apartments and skyscrapers. And unlike the other jerks we've been working for, he's genuinely nice to Luis and shows Gay Tony respect as a business owner, even offering to buy up and franchise his nightclubs. He's also responsible for bringing back the more ludicrous and over-the-top missions this series used to be known for. For example, the first job for him involves us stealing a military helicopter from a bunch of mercenaries. First, Luis will have to sneak onto their yacht by speedboat, avoiding the guards who are patrolling around the ship. Once on board, grab the chopper and fly away. But before heading back to Yusuf, he'll call and ask Luis to kill everyone on board the yacht, as apparently they're all terrorists and have committed some serious war crimes. So as a patriotic American, it's our job to kill those guys. Head back and light up the yacht, and then chase after and finish off the survivors as they try and escape by speedboat. I love this mission, but good God, did I constantly blow it when chasing the survivors, as I was constantly struggling to maintain the helicopter's altitude and shoot them at the same time. The game is really forgiving though, so if you fail it, like I did, when you restart the mission, it will skip ahead to the part you were on, as opposed to starting all the way from the beginning each time. Once all the mercenaries are dead, you can finally drop off the chopper. On my way to do another job for Gay Tony, I end up bumping into another random encounter. Margot. She's a girl that Luis hooked up with in the past, and let's just say she's very clingy.
You never answered my calls.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Or my emails.
Yeah, I meant to. I'm just...
Being rude.
Yeah. Look, I got a lot going on.
Did you get the book I sent you?
No.
The flowers?
No, listen, Margot, you're a nice girl, and it was nice hooking up with you, but it was over a year ago.
What's time got to do with anything?
I think this little interaction says more about why Luis didn't want to marry her than I ever could. Unfortunately, she attempts to kill herself, taking a ton of pills before Luis shows up. Lucky for her, he did show up. Otherwise, she'd just be some dead girl outside a gay nightclub. So we gotta get her to the hospital fast. It's kind of funny to see Luis's tone shift so fast. He goes from trying to let her down gently to just outright berating her after she pulled that stunt.
I'm going to die, and it's all your fault.
Oye, pero tú sí que eres loca. Idiot! Get in there. You're the doctor's problem now.
Aren't you coming in? You could hold back my hair when they pump me.
I see enough bulimic bitches at the club, Margot. You're on your own.
I love you.
After dealing with her, we got more girl problems as we meet up with Gay Tony and Gracie Ancelotti. Gracie previously showed up during the base game, getting kidnapped by Nico and Packy McCreary, who hoped to use her to extort her father for money, but ended up getting saved later by Luis and Tony, who wanted to trade the diamonds in exchange for her. She's every bit as unpleasant here as she was in the base game. Maybe more so since she spent most of that time being gagged and tied up.
Oh, look at this bitch behind the wheel! Tony, your extreme queeniness is starting to rub off on the employees.
This is more of a setup mission, as really you're only dropping off Tony at Gracie's place before he gets you to email and arrange a meeting with a blogger known as the Celebrinator. Some douchebag they didn't let into the club one day and who's been bad-mouthing them since. Returning to the club, we're once again doing another job for Rocco. Oh hey Roman.
Ladies, hide your titties!
And if it isn't Mr. Bulgarin.
So how's it going, gentlemen?
Your boss?
Sure.
Must make for funny times at Bonostar.
Hysterical.
Still pleasant as always, I see. This time around, Luis needs to head over to Bahama Mama's, a rival nightclub a few blocks away. He doesn't need to blow up or shoot up the place, just seduce the owner's girlfriend, Monique, while he's out of town. Which of course needs us to use our crazy dance skills yet again. Alrighty, mission accomplished. What? Well, looks like we're going to have to shoot up the place after all. Luis calls up Tony afterwards pissed, as he wasn't expecting the husband to just bust in on him. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure what exactly Rocco's plan was. Use the girlfriend's infidelity as blackmail maybe? Almost feels like he knew Vic, the owner, was there all along. Like maybe it was a setup. I really can't wait to inevitably kill that asshole. Alright, time to cool off and hang out with our best bud, Yusuf.
Anyway, let's go. Let's bounce, baby. When I say bounce, I don't mean bouncing literally. I just mean...
I know what it means, Yusuf.
It's a term from the street, meaning you have to walk. But if you don't get that, it's a bit like roll with me. You have to roll with me. You're not like a fat man rolling. It means actually
can we
just
just
walk.
go?
After he gets off the phone with his papa, he wants us to roll with him to meet his business partners, Ahmed and Tamir. Ahmed briefly showing up in the last mission when we dropped off the buzzard. On the way there, Yusuf briefly talks to him and suspects something's up, getting Luis to head to the top of Rotterdam Tower to check if everything's good. Turns out it's not all good, as the pair set up Yusuf, hoping to get him on wiretap and arrested by Noose, so the two could take over his business.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
While outnumbered, Luis isn't outgunned, as Yusuf hooked him up with an auto shotgun. He took the best weapon of the last DLC and made it even better by giving it explosive rounds. Oof, I fucking love this thing. Take care of the Noose agents and the choppers, and then follow Ahmed to the top of the tower.
What the fuck is going on, man? You just wanted Yusuf out of the picture.
Darkness and silence through the night.
Tell me what the fuck is going on.
What a freedom. I'm searching.
Get away from me, you crazy motherfucker!
What a fear in my heart.
He'll hand Luis a parachute, begging for his life, before unfortunately he slips.
Believe me! Snitching motherfucker! I didn't do nothing to you!
And takes an express trip down to the ground floor, with Luis parachuting away. Afterwards, you'll unlock base jumping as a side activity. Back to Tony's apartment, we find everyone partying, but the boss nowhere in sight. The old guy can't handle his drugs again, and Luis finds him conked out on the floor. After waking him up, he heads to the docks with Evan in tow. It's time to buy some diamonds. If you watched the last video about the Lost and Damned, this is where the diamonds originally came from during the main game, with a ship cook who smuggled them into the country for Ray Bulgarin, stealing some and selling them to Gay Tony. Or attempting to anyway, as the Lost end up crashing the party.
Thanks. Oh, shit, Tony, we out of here. Come on, let's go. Evan, take her to the club and the fuck about, okay?
Evan takes off with the diamonds and is chased by Johnny, while Luis and Gay Tony have to survive and outrun the remaining members of the Lost, which requires using those timed explosives we previously used before. While it's fun blowing them up, they can shred through the limo and kill you if you don't kill them fast enough. And even after getting away, you'll have to drive and outrun the cops after the driver gets blasted. With $2 million down the drain and the diamonds stolen, Gay Tony is in even deeper shit than before. Before we can dwell too much on that though, we have to go hang out with the annoying Oompa Loompa.
Hey, Lou, come on in. Hang on 1 second. Check. Mate. See ya! Little thicko never went to college. I never got into an Ivy League school. I got into 2! Yeah! Come on, let's get out of here.
We don't have to kill anyone this time around. Instead, get into a triathlon race. First by parachuting off a plane, then hopping on a speedboat, and finally a regular old car race. Nothing too crazy, but a fun little distraction. And it feels good to put that idiot Maury in his place when you beat him. Tony gives you a call soon after, in much better spirits as we've managed to arrange a sit down with the Celebinator. We meet the two at the helipad and take to the skies to enjoy the sights of Liberty City. It's another simple and fun mission, as we threaten the guy while holding him out of the plane, before throwing him out of it.
Fun's over, man. Have a nice life.
But you gotta save him!
Jump after him and grab him before he splats on the ground.
It kind of looks like you had a little accident. Someone might post a picture of that online.
I feel like shit!
And he learns a valuable lesson about not spreading gossip about the wrong people. The fun doesn't last long though, as first we get called by Ray Bulgarin, who's offering us some work, but it doesn't sound too pleasant. Also, Margot's back, and well, she's more unstable than before. She's threatening to jump and kill herself, and I'll be honest, Luis isn't doing the best job trying to talk her out of it.
Hey, don't apologize. I love keeping people from killing themselves. It's a weird fetish of mine.
No. I mean, I'm sorry we can't be together. You can't have me.
I don't want you. Now, come on, get down from there.
Must be easy for you. Thinking of me as being crazy, it must help.
Yeah, it does, actually.
I mean, I appreciate his honesty, but maybe telling her he doesn't love her would be best saved till after he gets her to safety?
If you loved me, you'd save me.
I don't love you.
I've got a letter telling everyone that you pushed me.
Come on, get over here.
Save me.
Oh, God.
After she hits the pavement, a mob will form and chase Luis, thinking he pushed her. Despite the terrible circumstances, I kinda like this idea of NPCs trying to stop you as opposed to running away from you when shit goes down. Could have been an interesting mechanic to pepper into the game, having to avoid killing civilians while shooting at enemies or something. In some sorta good news, we no longer have to deal with Maury, after we do this last job for him. Which, again, is just another way to deflate his ego as he wants to play a game of follow the leader with Luis and Brucey. The three of them drive sport cars through the streets of Liberty City and follow him to a preset location. And it figures the last mission for such an annoying guy would be the most frustrating as hell. Now, you probably think I'm going to complain about the driving mechanics again, but nope, not this time. Because the car we're driving handles really well. The problem is just the course we're going to have to take, as it has us speeding near the ocean, making tight turns with no guardrails. All with the cops chasing us, so all it takes is overshooting a corner, or taking a turn too tight, to fall right into the water. Somehow this mission took me close to half an hour to complete, but eventually I managed to land on the barge and can say goodbye to Maury. But not before Brucey finds the confidence in himself to stand up to that douchebag.
Man is nothing but beyond pathetic.
That's it, boy! Cut it out! Yeah! Yeah!
Are you kidding?
Yeah! Oh, God! Oh! Yeah! What the
What the are you doing? Oh, you know the rules. I'm sorry, Maury. I forgot, man. Never in the face. Oh, come on.
Good for you, Brucey. I knew you always had it in you. Now it's time to swing back by our buddy Yusuf's crib.
Then shoulders. We're getting Arab money. We're getting Arab money. Ho!
We find him hanging out and dancing with the prostitute while he's wearing no pants. He's got it into his head to steal a noose tank this time around. But before he can go into the details of his plans, his dad shows up, looking none too impressed to find the state his son is in.
Yusuf! Oh, Papa! What are you doing here? Welcome! Welcome, Papa! This is my business associate, Mr.
Luis.
Mr. Luis. Allah, he is the greatest technical advisor in the whole city. And this is his wife, Jaundice.
Careful, motherfucker!
Yes, and you know, we were just having a little creative meeting and things went a bit crazy, and I somehow lost my pants.
I didn't touch on it earlier, but all of Yusuf's money really comes from his dad. Which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. As someone who spends his time mostly doing drugs, having sex with hookers, and pissing money away on stupid things, doesn't sound like a great businessman. After Yusuf shoos Luis away while his dad chews him out, he'll later come back to pick him up in his chopper to go after the tank. And again, this is another frustrating mission as the tank is being transported by chopper, so you have to shoot it down in order to steal it. This requires you to snipe at these 4 tiny anchor points holding onto the tank. And good God, a combination of a moving target, the bullet drop from the rifle, and the oversensitive analog sticks made this a nightmare. This was the only mission throughout all of my GTA IV playthrough where I had to switch to mouse aim to get it done. It's not over when you shoot it down though, as you have to get in and get away from the cops. And the noose tank is a huge disappointment compared to tanks in previous games. Mainly because it's not this invincible and unstoppable force of nature. While it can take out cars in one shot, it can still get damaged. So if you're not careful, you'll blow yourself up along with the cops.
Yusuf, bro, where you at, man?
Over here, man.
Where?
Up here, brother. Shit, stand back when I pick this thing up.
Okay, man.
Thanks for everything, bro. You're a diamond.
Don't mention it.
After dropping off the tank, Luis meets up with Tony at Hercules. He's not in the best spirits, but he's gotten word that the diamonds are about to be sold, and convinces Luis they should swoop in and grab them. It's the Libertonium Museum mission all over again, though it's a lot more stylish and fun this time around. First, Luis will borrow that buzzard he stole for Yusuf, who's gone ahead and painted it gold. Next, Luis will land on top of the museum and interrupt the deal like he did the last time.
Rest of you motherfuckers wanna die? Do something stupid, okay?
You! Just get the shit, man! Come on!
But he doesn't stick around for long, as he nabs the diamonds and flies away. Instead of fighting the Jewish mob, he has to deal with the cops, getting into dogfights with their choppers. It's awkward because of the flight mechanics, but a lot more fun compared to killing a bunch of mobsters in the museum for the 3rd time. With the diamonds back in hand, hopefully nothing will happen that will cause us to lose them again. So anyway, Gracie got kidnapped, and Tony is once again a wreck. You know, it's kind of wholesome to see Tony be so worried and care so much for Gracie of all people. From what we saw during the main campaign, her dad, despite being a mob boss, didn't offer much help in saving her, with Tony and Luis having to do the heavy lifting.
The closest thing I've had to a son. I'm sorry, Luis. I love you. Goodbye!
Tony, come on, man.
Goodbye! I love you! Shit! Shit! Ah! Ah!
What's wrong with you, you dumb prick? Huh? Get up! Get up so I can kill you myself! Get up!
Okay, I'm sorry.
After Gay Tony tries and fails to kill himself, Luis knocks some sense back into him, and the two formulate a plan to save Gracie. The mission this time around is to follow Packy's car by helicopter, trying to figure out where he stashed Gracie. They get her location, and in the main game, Ancelotti goons would attack that location, needed Nico and Packy to move her. And now it's time to deal with someone I've been avoiding for a while, Ray Bulgarin.
If this banking is not hanging on my wall, your head will be. Okay? Think about that.
You want I should pay visit to his children at their school?
Not yet. I think there's always a price in this city. Oh, Louis, excuse us. We're being rude.
As a quick recap, Ray Bulgarin is Nico's old boss, who he used to smuggle people for a few years before this game. After a botched job that almost killed Nico, Bulgarin ended up losing a lot of money and assumed that Nico ripped him off. He's the one who had the diamonds smuggled into Liberty City, and also briefly worked with Dmitry Rascalov in order to kill Nico. But he ends up disappearing from the plot of the main game towards the end, and doesn't show up until the DLC. But outside of that, we didn't learn much about his personality, and could only assume he was bad news based off of how fast Dmitry sold Nico out to him, and how screwing up the job for Bulgarin partially motivated Nico to come to Liberty City in the first place. My first impression of him wasn't what I was expecting though. We find him staying in a house in Dukes, on the phone with someone trying to buy a hockey team. He seems a little more chill compared to how he was portrayed in the main game, and honestly reminds me a lot of Mikhail Faustin. Apparently he's squatting in his sister's place, his sister, while never seen, shouting and arguing with him from the floor above.
Yes! Yes!
He asked for Luis's help in killing some crooked news agents, who are planning to plant some phony evidence on Bulgarin. Why are they planting evidence on him? Well, they work for the guy who doesn't want to sell his hockey team to him. No, really, this whole shit starts because Bulgarin won't stop badgering the guy about buying his hockey team. Luis, Bulgarin, and Bulgarin's right-hand man, Timur, will head for the car park that the news agents are planning to raid and plant evidence. The trio will arrive first, rigging Bulgarin's car with a sticky bomb, and ambushing the feds once they show up. Kill all the feds, and then escape from the survivors.
Welcome! Welcome to the party! Sit down. Sit down.
Sure.
Can I get you anything? A drink? Oh, something stronger. Huh?
I'm cool, bro.
You know how to play the drums? We need a fucking drummer.
I ain't your man, bro. Sorry.
The following mission starts off with Bulgarin and Timur just rocking and playing guitar. It's such a weird thing to see from someone who's supposed to be this ruthless Russian boss. All his attempts to buy the Rampage hockey team have fallen through. So he asks Luis to kill the owner, Ashveli, so he can swoop in and buy the team. Luis isn't interested in being a contract killer, but Bulgarin basically forces him to do it. See, now that's more of what I was expecting. He'll leave to do the job with Timur tagging along to keep an eye on Luis, and make sure he does what he's told. After flying a chopper up above the building where the target is located, Luis will parachute onto the roof to try and sneak in quietly. Keyword here is try, as he's immediately caught on camera and will have to fight off Ashveli's security, which is easier said than done, as you'll be fighting several guards per floor, in narrow hallways with little cover, so you'll get shredded to pieces if you're not careful.
Look at the Latin girl, I thought she was of age. She looked like...
After you find and kill Ashveli, you'll have to parachute out of the window to safety, where Timur will pick you up in his truck. Or not, as if you don't land on the truck, he abandons you to escape on his own.
Asshole!
Making it back to Bulgarin, he seems really on edge, arguing with his sister again, and possibly injuring her when he shoots at the ceiling.
Shut up, you cunt! Shut up, you fucking cunt!
Hey, man, is she okay?
Ignore her, Luis. The diamonds.
He asks Luis about the diamonds Tony has, offering to buy them before he asks Luis to sit on a deal with Timur. The fact he's asking about them can't be good, because as you recall, the diamonds belong to Bulgarin in the first place, though Luis doesn't know that. On the way to the deal, Luis will pick up a sniper rifle from Armando, and arrive on the rooftop where he's supposed to find Timur. He ends up finding someone else instead.
You're in position. Do you see a box in front of you?
Yeah.
Open it. Do you recognize that?
Shit!
I believe you parted with him in a diamond deal.
Yeah, Bulgarian's not playing around, as he's pissed once he's found out that Luis and Gay Tony were in on the diamond deal. You'll be pinned down by a small army of snipers, so you'll have to make effective use of cover and take pot shots at the shooters in order to survive. And things escalate when a chopper shows up, along with goons with assault rifles. After getting away, Luis will call up Tony to let him know what went down, and that Bulgarian wants them dead. Well, we're really in it this time. And unfortunately, we can't make a peace offering with the diamonds, as it's time to exchange them for Gracie. We'll meet up with Nico and Packy in order to do the swap, and ironically end up leaving just before Bulgarian shows up to confront Nico. In the main game, this was the last time we saw the diamonds, as a goon working for Bulgarian ended up tossing them onto a passing truck, out of spite before he died. We're near the end of the game now, and before we have to deal with all the dumb shit we've been wrapped up in all game, we've got one last job for our main man, Yusuf. If you thought stealing a buzzard helicopter and a tank were insane, well, those were nothing compared to what he wants now.
Alright then, what we after?
Wait for it.
I'm waiting.
You ready?
Just tell me, bro.
A mother-f***ing subway train!
Oh yeah, baby!
The prize of the fleet! The ass flagship of the LTA! Give it up!
Luis will have to jump onto a moving train, miraculously not breaking any of his bones when he lands on it. He now has to make his way to the lead subway car to disconnect it with a bomb. But the LCPD aren't going to make it easy for him. Yusuf has hooked you up with explosive rounds again for the auto shotgun. But it's still a tough mission as you're completely exposed on top of the train. You'll need to walk in with full health and body armor, along with killing enemies and choppers almost as soon as they spawn in order to survive. Now if you do manage to disconnect the subway car, how the hell are you even supposed to steal the thing? Well, Yusuf's got that covered. Man, I love that crazy son of a bitch. Things go sour soon after though, as Rocco will call up. Bulgarin's been talking to Ancelotti, and he wants Luis and Gay Tony dead, because of the mess with the diamonds.
That's what I told him. That shit would never have happened back in the day.
What's up, ladies? Still living the high life, I see.
You.
What you doing here, cruising?
Very funny.
Meeting Rocco and his uncle Vince in the park, they give Luis an ultimatum. Kill Tony or die alongside him. Heading back to Mason at 9, Rocco and Vince are already waiting there with Tony. Forced into a corner, Luis has no choice about what he has to do next.
Do it.
Sorry. I'm sorry, man.
After all we've been through, Lou!
I'm sorry, T. You was family, man. But it's either you or all of us.
The Russians are coming, man. We don't got time for this gay shit.
Can pop them already.
You fucking moron!
Hey, I had second thoughts, man.
You fucking killed yourself just then!
What, did you expect him to betray Tony? Come on. Despite how his boss constantly screwed up and made things increasingly worse for them throughout the game, Luis remains loyal. How could he ever turn his back on the man who gave him a chance at a better life, and was basically the father he never had? That said, rather infuriatingly, despite how much I was wishing it throughout this video, we don't get to put one between Rocco's eyes. Tony stops us since Rocco's a made man, which feels like such a flimsy excuse. The whole game portrayed him more as a hired thug than anyone of any real note in the Ancelotti family. And what does it matter if they do kill him? Ancelotti was more than happy to give them both up to the Russians. So would it be any different if they came after the pair? Also, why wouldn't the mob come down on them after Rocco reports that they killed Vince? Hell, the majority of the game seemed to set up Rocco as the final boss. Or at least that he'd get his comeuppance for all his bullshit racism and homophobia. But nope, one throwaway line is enough to spare the guy as he walks out of the club. But at least he'll get his in GTA V. No time to dwell on that Guido prick though, as an army of Russian assassins storm the club. This opening section can be brutal if you're not prepared, as your cover is terrible, the railing on the second floor offering close to no protection as you attack the enemies below. And it's really easy for one of them to get past you, up the stairs, and shoot you from behind. Best bet is to throw explosives down there to kill groups of them at once. Once you've escaped the club, head back to Tony's apartment, where you find him packing and ready to go on the run. Luis talks him out of it, and convinces him to stand their ground and take care of the Russians and Bulgarin. First is dealing with Bulgarin's drug stream, which is being run out of Firefly Island, Bulgarin taking over the business after Nico kills Dimitri in the main game. Luis will sneak into the closed-off amusement park, Funland, and start destroying the drug vans along with killing Bulgarin's men.
Ray flies away now, pretty boy! You are too late to get it! You think he will forget about you? You and all your friends are dead!
Yeah, that ain't happening, Timmy!
After a brief showdown with Timur, Luis has 2 hours to get to the airport and stop Bulgarin from escaping back to Russia. But with an army of hitmen still chasing him, how the hell is he gonna get there? God, I love this bastard. With Yusuf clearing the way, Luis makes it to the airport just as Bulgarin's plane is taking off. Despite being cornered by Luis, Bulgarin has one last trick up his sleeve. He pulls the pin on a grenade, threatening to kill both of them if Luis shoots. He takes his chances and finally puts that Russian scumbag down once and for all.
You can't shoot me! You'll blow a whole plane up!
I'll take my chances.
And miraculously doesn't die when half the plane explodes. Back on the ground, Luis will meet up with Tony at their agreed upon meeting spot in Dukes. And we get some closure over what happened to the diamonds after they were lost getting traded for Gracie. Enjoy them, old man. Don't go spending your new riches all at once. Luis and Gay Tony have a heart-to-heart while staring at the monoglobe, reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future now that they're finally in the clear. Even though Rocco's still alive and there's nothing stopping the mob from still coming after them, best GTA character Yusuf will join the pair, congratulating them on their survival, and the trio walk away into the sunset, happily ever after.
Luis, I love you, man. I love you! I love you too. I love everyone! Come on, let's get out of here. Oh, by the way, I think my father may be into franchising clubs.
I know, franchise is not the way to go. The club is all about the people.
The people. Come on, whip out your dick and piss all over them.
You're gonna go a long way in hospitality, my friend.
And that was the Ballad of Gay Tony. Man, what a ride that was. Like I brought up way back at the beginning of the video, this expansion ended up being my favorite part of the entire GTA IV experience. It had a lot more mission variety with some crazy and over-the-top set pieces, most of them courtesy of Yusuf. The story found the right balance of seriousness and wackiness, not leaning too hard one way or the other. Still keeping me invested in some more serious moments, even after doing some insane things like stealing a subway car. Luis and Gay Tony make a great pair, their dynamic and friendship being a huge highlight of the DLC. As despite all the shit that goes down, and their various personality flaws, you can tell they really care about each other. Best exemplified towards the end when Luis chooses to stick with Tony, instead of executing him, even though he probably had every right to, considering all of Tony's f***ups. Luis ended up being my favorite of the three protagonists. Obviously, this is very subjective and will be different for everyone, but he just felt the most relatable to me. It was easy to understand the circumstances he was stuck in. His desire to do better in life, the criticisms he gets from just about everyone for even trying, and constantly having to be the fixer in the lives of his friends and family. But I also liked his more carefree attitude, his bluntness, and his loyalty as a friend. The side characters introduced were a lot more interesting and memorable, Yusuf of course being the shining highlight. I do have some issues with the story, mainly in that I feel Bulgarian was kind of shoehorned in as the final boss. While it is true the whole mess with the diamonds starts with him, I don't feel like it has enough history and interaction with Luis and Tony to justify his inclusion. As I brought up in the first video when discussing the main game, I think it made more sense for him to be Nico's final boss, since the two have a history together. And since Dimitri was working for him, it would have made more sense for Bulgarin to usurp him as the final boss in that one ending, as opposed to Jimmy Pegorino. Rocco antagonizing Luis and Gay Tony from the very beginning, constantly dragging them into trouble, escalating issues, and of course being a racist, homophobic piece of shit, would have made a much more satisfying final boss, a game's worth of hatred finally boiling over when we get to kill him. Instead, it's just hand-waved away while we can't kill him, and he disappears for the last part of the game. Things like the scoring system I'm still not a fan of. As I brought up before, you are free to ignore it since you don't need to achieve a certain percentage score to pass a level, but I feel like it really railroads the player to finish missions a certain way, as opposed to letting them get creative. And it doesn't help that you can't replay a mission unless you beat the game or reload a save. To sum up my thoughts on the Ballad of Gay Tony, it was a much needed breath of fresh air over the overly serious and scripted experience of the base game. It added much needed variety to the missions, more interesting characters, and in my opinion at least, a more likable protagonist than Luis Lopez. It's a fitting end to the whole GTA IV experience, and honestly, I wouldn't mind revisiting Luis and Gay Tony again. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll pop up in GTA VI. Hopefully they don't end up screwing them over like they did Johnny in 5 though. It's been a blast revisiting GTA IV, and I'm hoping these long videos may have convinced a few of you to give it and its DLC a chance. While it may feel a little dated in certain parts, and a bit too scripted in other areas, it's absolutely worth returning to. Oh hey, are you still watching? Thanks for making it to the end of the Supercut. Hope you enjoyed my full retrospective on GTA IV and its DLCs. Just to mess with people in the comments, and to show that you made it here, comment down below that Diddy Kong Racing has better driving controls than GTA IV. If you haven't watched them already, check out my videos on the original GTA trilogy. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada yada. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.